You're like a bottle-sized sailboat in a high wind, trying high seas again, with the rigging too warm to mend, and the storm just coming in. The tiller it starts to spin, overboard there go the men, screaming, "Oh dear Lord, no, not again." But it's just the beginning, not the end.
The tiller it starts to spin as overboard there go the men, screaming, "Oh dear Lord, no, not again." But it's just the beginning, no, not the end. She tucks you in and lays your head to rest. With the luck you're in, she'll tear that treasure right out of your chest. She tucks you in, circle and start to sink. Juxtaposition, 2 rounds and you're in the drink. You're like a bottle-sized sailboat in a high wind, trying high seas again, with the rigging too worn to mend, and the storm just coming in. The captain in sick bay, night of death, no sign of clearer skies ahead. But hold fast, dear lads, this is not her last. This is just the beginning, no, not the end. 'Cause she'll tuck you in and lay your head to rest. With the luck you're in, she'll tear that treasure right out of your chest. She tucks you in, circle and start to sink. Juxtaposition, 2 rounds and you're in the drink. Tucks you in and lays your head to rest. With the luck you're in, she'll tear the treasure right out of your chest. She sucks you in, you circle and start to sink. Juxtaposition, 2 rounds and you're in the drink.
You're like a bottle-sized sailboat in a high wind, trying high seas again, with the rigging too worn to mend, and the storm just coming in. The tiller it starts to spin as overboard there go the men, screaming, "Oh dear Lord, no, not again." But it's just the beginning, not the end.
Okay, so when they have killed an... Okay, so that's... Maybe we're talking past each other. Maybe that's the possibility that maybe we're talking past each other. So you're saying that Israel at some point declares victory. They say that we've reached some sort of operational degradation of Hamas, and now we can stop, right?
Yep.
Okay, right, and they could reach this operational degradation without the return of the hostages, and then they would just stop, or what do you
I
think?
imagine they probably, whatever degradation occurs, would probably entail the release of the hostages too. If Hamas is capable of retaining all the hostages against the IDF, then I think Israel would probably say they still have too much operational capacity. So these things probably go hand in hand with each other.
So they will bomb until Hamas, until Hamas is so degraded that then they hand over the
Yep.
Hostages.
Yep. Do you think there's a
Okay,
better
so-
alternative to that? Or do you acknowledge that that's probably the most reasonable course of action for Israel to take?
Yeah, the simple alternative is what's been presented already.
What is the
that,
alternative?
Sure. We will exchange those hostages for a ceasefire.
First of all, does Hamas even accept that?
Yes, actually, that's what they've stated before. Yeah, well, sorry, not
Are
me.
you sure that wasn't in
Them.
exchange for every single Palestinian prisoner as well?
We can look it up. And I don't know. Maybe that's a reasonable request that could be negotiated, right?
Why would you
but in any
negotiate
case-
with people that terrorist attacked you and then captured a bunch of hostages and then give them back a bunch of their prisoners?
Because at some point the fighting has to stop. This is what I'm saying. That there is a cycle of violence. Look, it's
Wait, the fighting has to
uncomfortable
stop. Right now,
making-
one side can end the fighting completely.
The-
Hamas can release the hostages. Why aren't you debating
and
pro-Hamas
the other side
people?
the other side can do so as well.
Yeah, but why would
the
you?
other
But
side
there's
can
no
do so-
expectation for them to.
There's no expectation. There's no expectation, of course. But then there's no path to peace. What I'm saying is
If
that
there's no
it's
path to peace,
unfortunate.
then
It's unfortunate.
No, that's listen.
I'm sorry,
If there's
sorry.
no path to peace, then fine, then die. That's your alternatives. That's fine. If you want to say that like Palestinians just can't give up their intifada, their fatwa against the country of Israel, and they're going to continue to terrorist attack and take hostages, I think they can probably do better than that. I don't think that
I
it's
absolutely
baked into
think
their
they
genetic
can.
code to
There's
do
no
that.
reason- I
Okay,
didn't
then
say
there is
that.
a path to peace. What the path to peace should probably be the terrorist organization that runs your territory, that's committed to the destruction of all of Israel, should probably not be there anymore, and should probably give back the hostages that it captured from a dance festival after a terrorist attack. I think that's a reasonable solution. I don't think it's reasonable to say that the country that just had the largest terrorist attack, that was per capita like 20 times worse than 9/11, enacted upon its citizens, mostly civilians, who then had 250 hostages taken back to their country, some raped, some killed, that side should draw a ceasefire negotiation with those terrorist groups and then release all of their prisoners back to that country where they can come back then and do more terrorist attacks, which is why, by the way, those work permits were rescinded, is because of those 40,000 work permits that were issued, a ton of those people were involved in the actual cross-border attacks. I don't think it's reasonable to demand that Israel is the one to do the ceasefire and to come and meet Hamas across the finish line.
Do you think that the Gazans are in a reasonable mood at this point in time?
If they're unreasonable, that's fine, then die.
No,
Those are your options. I'm sorry, but those are your options. When you're in the wrong in military conflict, then you can get firebombed, you
What
can
I'm
get
asking
nuked, you
for
can
is
get invaded,
peace,
you can
right?
get killed.
But you don't
that's,
actually
that's how
see-
it works. There is no
You
onus
don't-
on Israel
no,
right here
how
to
it
bow
works-
to terrorists that are trying to murder their civilian population that have
There is no
avowedly stated
bowing.
they want to
There is
destroy
no
the country.
bowing involved. You can frame it as bowing. You can frame that. You can do that, but you can poison the audience with this idea that it's framing it as bowing to Hamas,
what would
right?
you
No,
call
but they
it if a
actually no.
terrorist
Israel gets
attack to
in
capture
what I've
200
stated.
hostages and then say,
Israel
hey,
gets to
let's
keep his
negotiate?
military.
How is that
Israel
not
gets to
bowing?
keep his military. Israel gets.
No, hold on. Israel has a military. Israel's a
political
real
structure.
country with a military. It doesn't get to keep it. It's owed a military.
Yeah, exactly. Great. And it all stands. It all stands. None of that's being threatened.
Why
They
it was
have
never
all
being
of that.
threatened?
Exact. Agreed. Agreed. So there's no bowing involved here, right?
There is
It's-
bowing.
What's
Terrorists just
understanding
captured
is that
200 of their civilians as hostages, and you want them to negotiate to get those back?
the status quo, pre-October 7th, led to October 7th, and with Netanyahu, I believe Netanyahu saying that we'd occupy Palestine.
Hold on. When you say the
Gaza.
status quo led to October 7th, which part of prior to October 7th is it that justified mass terrorist attacks?
Don't say justified. Don't say justified. I didn't say justified. I said led to. So
Well,
I'm not
you
gonna have
said
to fight on
led
those
to, but you
grounds.
don't believe that it's fully
Led
justified,
to.
then why do we care?
It
Then who
does-
cares? Let them suffer
hold
the
on.
consequences.
Of course it matters. I can disagree with everything. I can disagree with what led the Nazis, right? What led Germany
No, you
to
don't
back
understand
the
though.
Nazi part.
When
Hold
you're
on.
telling
I can say
Israelis that they need to negotiate on even terms with Hamas, you're basically saying that both sides have equal justification for what they're doing. That's what's implied there.
No, I don't have to say that. I don't have to say that.
Then
I
why
don't know
would
why
you-
you're caught up on this, because I don't have to say that. I can say that for the goal of peace, for the goal of eliminating,
Oh, Jesus.
for not having another October 7th. For one day, being able to live side to side, whether it be a two-state solution or a one-state solution. In either of those, there has to be a moment where
Israel
we sit
doesn't
down.
hold on. Israel doesn't want peace with terrorists that are going to continue to terrorist attack them. I don't know why you don't understand that.
You got much louder. For a
Yeah,
second
my
there.
mic got turned down by 50%. I just noticed on my volume on my computer. Why do you think
okay,
that?
sorry.
Why do you think Israel would want peace with a terrorist group that's capturing civilian hostages?
Why would they want peace for a terrorist group that's capturing civilian hostages? So that terrorist group doesn't capture more civilian hostages. So that
Hold on.
bombs
Why would the
eventually-
terrorist group not capture more civilian hostages if capturing them got it everything it wanted?
Because we were moving towards a path for peace.
But hold on. No. Everything that you're saying is just completely not in line with what any of the Palestinians want. This is nice that you, Prime Kai, or you, an American, thinks this. Palestinians don't want peace. Hamas is not fighting for peace. They're fighting for one state that is controlled by Palestinians, where Israel's or Jewish people are an ethnic minority, where ideally they can ship them out in the future. These are the avowedly stated goals and polling positions and opinions of Palestinians and Hamas people.
So what I'm doing with my finger, right? In case you can't tell. In case you can't tell. I'm making a circle, drawing a circle, right? Okay? And then at any point in the circle, there's going to be unjust action. At any point, that you'll find one side or other saying the other side is irredeemable
You
for the
think
thing
that
that they
both
just
sides
did.
have equal arguments there?
It doesn't.
It does matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Hold on. Should we have drawn up a peace plan with Nazi Germany?
Hold on.
No.
I'm not. No, hold on. Wait a second. When peace. What am I trying to say here?
You were the answer. Should we have drawn up a
Peace,
peace plan
sure,
with Nazi Germany?
Sure. That you can't. You're saying that these individuals don't want peace. The Palestinians. They simply don't want peace. Then I reply that the reason that they don't want peace, they might want peace, even if I grant you almost everything, right? Is that because of how they feel, whether it's just or unjust of their treatment, just or unjust of the prospects of their future. That is a reason as to why they feel this way.
Okay, but
and
not
now,
all reasons are equal, and they shouldn't be treated equally. If you've got a
If you
shitty
want to-
reason for doing something, nobody should kowtow to what you want. Just like you wouldn't give a child crying in a store candy bar because they throw a temper tantrum every time they pass by the Snickers aisle. You wouldn't give a terrorist group what they want because they do a terrorist attack and capture hostages. Should we have been forced to make peace with Nazi Germany?
So this is the fundamental break that we're having. Okay. All right.
Well, hold on. I can tell you the
is
fundamental
that-
break, but you don't want to acknowledge it. The fundamental break is you believe that there is equal, or probably you actually think there's more justification on the Palestinian side to be upset. So that's why you keep saying that, maybe Israel
No,
needs to
I
come to
don't
the table and
care.
make concessions to Hamas. Well,
I
that's
don't
really
care.
important. Okay, then answer the question then. If Nazi Germany would have sued for peace after they started to lose a lot of the conquered territory, should we have said, okay, fine, peace?
That they had sued for peace. Okay, all right, no, I'll answer. Yeah, sure. If Nazi Germany had sued for peace, sure, actually we can go into negotiations with them. 100%. Yeah, we can. We can go into they're losing territory, and they're in a disadvantageous position. What can we extract from those negotiations? Hey, stop murdering the Jews. That'd be important, right? There's no path to peace if you don't dismantle these camps. That could be a thing that within the negotiation table that you can make. Right? There is a world where Nazi Germany isn't destroyed, or at least by bombs, right?
Let me. I gotta grab one other thing. I didn't actually. The next one.
I want to speak, but I also like listening to you all each other. So it's very difficult for me.
Sure, just let me know, or raise your
No,
flipper.
carry on. Okay.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right. YouTube.com/PrimeKai. If you want more of me, maybe, I don't know. If it sounds exciting, right? Or if you hate me and you want to let me know, love to hear from you. YouTube.com/PrimeKai. PRIMECAYES. is where you can find me. Or Twitch.tv. But again, not like this. We haven't got such being awful.
So Nazi Germany, Nazis who have an ideology of racial superiority, of Aryan supremacy, that were running death camps, that were killing millions of Jews, non-desirables, Soviet captured prisoners of war. We negotiate with them, and then what? We continue to allow them to run their country like that?
Hold on, did you not hear what I said previously? Did you not hear the part
Yeah, you
that
said, well, as long as they stop killing Jews and they turn off all the camps,
Yeah,
then that's fine, then it's okay then.
That within the process of a negotiation, that you can make stipulations. So we can go down the list of all the horrors of Nazi Germany, and they are endless, right? We can go down that list, and we can say, well, these things that you are doing are simply unacceptable.
I mean,
And that, like,
And then they'll stop, and
obviously
then we'll be
the
okay
scale-
afterwards, keeping them, they can still stay in power. I think the majority of
obviously
the planet, didn't we try this leading up to Germany, is like making small, would you even say appeasements to them, and it didn't seem to work very well?
I don't know that history, so I'm not going to speak.
Well, there was Churchill and a bunch of other people in
I know
Europe.
they had the. I know
Basically
there was,
bitched out
I thought that piece of
French,
in the
like,
other
well,
direction,
Germany
but
wants
I
a little
don't
bit of
know.
territory, they want to invade a little bit, like, maybe we just like let them do a little bit, maybe they'll...
No, but that was the other direction. Hold on, that was the other direction. I don't.
Or Chamberlain, I
like,
suppose,
Yeah, they were making concessions in the other direction. So, from my understanding, right?
Yeah, but in the general thing is that, like, appeasing a group of people that just want to, like, kill and murder and conquer is generally not... I don't know historically if there's precedent for that ever
this
working.
kind of isn't that just the Japanese? Isn't that very similar to the Japanese way? Obviously, the scale of the atrocities is much bigger on the Nazi side, right? But the Japanese also committed tons of atrocities, terrible massacres. And
Yeah,
we
we
were able to
firebombed almost every large city and then nuked the other two in Japan, invaded them, dismantled the entire fucking government, and then...
Right. Okay. But again, we didn't continue bombing until they were like it was like rubble, right? At some point,
Until
we
they
just
essentially did an
government-
unconditional surrender, basically, right?
Right. Yeah. So and like I said earlier, I agree that the goal of dismantling Hamas.
Yeah, but
Me
Hamas
too.
is not surrendering. They want to negotiate. Why would you negotiate with a foe you clearly defeat militarily, and that has dedicated themselves to the destruction of you? Why would you ever negotiate with them?
Well, I think if we put into the context where I think you said earlier that Hamas is like you can't really they have like an ideological goal. They hatred of Jews and etc. So it's very difficult to like actually negotiate with these people in any context. So understanding that, it doesn't seem to me to make sense to have them even be the people that you would negotiate with for anything beyond like getting the hostages back, right? It wouldn't make sense to say, try to find some other leader, some other organization within Gaza that you can negotiate with for post-war peace. Yeah, I don't even that within Hamas more civilians. I don't think they're the ones that should be that we should look to for any kind of reasonable negotiation. And my understanding is that there have been attempts at talks, right, so far, and attempts at coming up with a deal to handle the hostages, and they've been rejected for a multitude of reasons. Reason one is like I think Israel was offering a 2-month ceasefire. And the release of Palestinian prisoners, some Palestinian prisoners, over in stages over like a 2-month period, and that was rejected because what Hamas is demanding is that Israel leaves first, right? Pulls out of the area, and then and has a ceasefire, and then they'll give over the hostages, which I agree that's pretty unreasonable for Israel to accept that. Right? So. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that if we're talking about like, negotiations long term, I don't think that Hamas is going to given that within their interest. Right. So, I mean, my question, I guess, to both of you is, if we all agree that Hamas post-war should not be in charge, cannot be in charge, if there's to be any lasting peace, when should we encourage Israel? I mean, I'm in the United States, so I can advocate for positions of public defense policy and stuff. I'm just a dude about that. When do you think people should start pushing for them to shift the political focus away from Hamas and away from that terrible organization to some other group, some other leader?
Once Hamas is no longer in
Groups
power.
that might have been... I'm sorry, what?
Once Hamas is no longer in power.
Okay, but no longer in power equals like what?
No more
longer
operational
has,
capacity, doesn't administer to any of the territory anymore, can't conduct operations.
Okay, so at whatever point Israel decides that's the case. Okay, well, I mean, so essentially what you're saying is, I think, is that they keep bombing them, keep up the war until they feel like Hamas is lost enough capacity to function. And at that point, defensively, that's the end. I don't know how they get to that point and still get hostages, right? It seems like if you're going to keep bombing until you get to the point where Hamas loses all ability to function, these hostages can stop.
Maybe.
Okay. And actually, that actually might be awful, but it might be like long-term better, right? Because, you know, I agree that it is not unreasonable. It would be very difficult to expect this to negotiate. And for that negotiation, so yeah, and if you need to sacrifice, you know, hundreds of people, 300 people to achieve that, to get to the point where this organization isn't in control anymore, maybe that's better. You know, maybe that makes sense.
Okay. Feelings on that?
Yeah,
feeling? I mean, okay.
Well, friend, so like, I don't know how you get to that point, right? So we all agree that Hamas shouldn't be in charge anymore. How do you get there if you're going to stop bombing so that Hamas can turn over the hostages? So how do you get to the point where they're no longer in control, no longer have power? If the ceasefire leads to them retaining the control, because I'm assuming, you know, if there were some kind of deal, it would involve not just turning over the hostages, it would involve like a multiple-month ceasefire, and they probably want some of their Palestinian prisoners released, and then what? Do they expect Israel to not just go back to bombing them? Of course, that's probably going to happen. I think Israel will be justified in doing that. Right, so like I think at some point we need to like there needs to be like a separation between like Hamas and the people and the Palestinian people.
So sure, I think there should be a separation. I've repeated many times before that. Like I don't think that Hamas is the leader in the other. There's no future that I see where Hamas, like as an organization, survives. And certainly not one where there is peace, okay, however we're defining that. But one way would be through that ceasefire, right? So you have a ceasefire where the hostages are exchanged, the bombs stop dropping, and we can try to put some semblance of border within Gaza. And then we put credible actions on the table for a credible path on the table for peace. That, like,
what motivation does Israel have, from their perspective, to negotiate with Hamas when they can destroy them? Why would they? Why should they?
Because the other path, right, is either ethnic cleansing, which would be bad for Israel, like the rest of the world watching ethnic cleansing happening. I hope, at some point that enough deaths will be right. So whether it's your magic 40K number, or it's 100,000, or whatever, that at some point the world will step in. At some point, Israel will lose that level of support. So for its own selfish reasons, or also that there's the consequences lead us up of them not bombing, lead us up to a regional war, and they want to avoid that regional war. And what will guarantee that? If there's an ethnic cleansing, well, almost guarantee it. If there's an ethnic cleansing happening, so these are all reasons, selfishly, that the Israelis might not want to go through with that. So.
Okay, so you agree then that they should operate up to their maximum operational capacity as long as they don't lose regional support?
Of course not. I don't know why.
Then I don't know why you. Then why are you making that argument? so then Israel has no reason why they should negotiate then with Hamas. They should just. What is your reason
because you don't know when that that moment is. You don't actually know what that
What do you
moment
mean?
is.
Of course you do. Leaders are in constant communication, checking civilian death numbers and where populations are at or whatever for this type of stuff.
No. They'll figure out the death numbers, but you don't know what's the tipping point, right? What's the tipping point? You can see that maybe things. Let's pretend like my world was closer than reality here, right? You can see that there's a point where the U.S. is going to drop support. You
Yeah,
can
but
see,
you would stop
the
before that point.
Hold
It's
on.
not going to happen randomly.
But you don't know. Like I don't know
Yes,
when
I
you
do
think
know. I'm saying that very
geopolitics.
confidently. It's not going to be like
I
one
don't-
day the whole world flips the switch like, oh, all of us are fighting Israel.
I
No,
didn't
there's
say
gonna
that.
be a
I didn't say
lead-up.
that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Right? And why I used an example of one organization being the U.S. Right? Like you can see
Okay, but nothing.
that you're
Hold on.
losing.
This whole line of argumentation is worthless. You keep saying that everybody might turn against them. We agree that Israel should stop before the rest of the world turns against them. There's going to be a lead up to
Agreed.
that. Though. Yes. But then I asked you, is that then the only thing that's limiting you with Israel? Of course it's not. You don't believe in what you just said. Because then I asked you, do you think that Israel should operate in its full operational capacity as long as they're not losing regional allies or partners? And you said, well, of course not. So obviously there's something else there. So I don't know why you're bringing this point up.
Well, because personally, it's because I don't want to see the deaths of innocent Palestinians. That's why personally, why I don't want that. I kind of care about these things, about the death of civilians.
But also like if you were to get rid of Hamas, right? If you were to get rid of Hamas, and
Wait, why don't you? If you want civilians not to die, then why isn't the onus on Hamas, the people that administer to the region, to stop the fighting?
it is, but we've already established they're fucking crazy. They're
Oh, then that's
unreasonable.
their fault.
There's
That's their country then. Then they
I
can
understand
figure
it's
it
their
out.
fault. I understand it's the fault of Hamas.
Well, hold on,
but
I understand you
I
do,
don't
but
I don't think that's the fault
but
of.
Prime doesn't seem to
God.
think that. He seems to think it's all on Israel.
I don't think it's all on, dude. I don't think it's all on Israel. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I don't think it's all on Israel. I think you have to both stay on the table. You're saying that like there is this starting point. Here is the starting point of peace, right? And the starting point is Hamas, according to you, deciding to voluntarily dismantle, or maybe not voluntarily, like under coercion, dismantle. I'm saying that like that, or won't happen with these people that you think, especially if you think that they are so unreasonable, Hamas, that they're so crazy, they're so radicalized, that won't happen. But a more viable path is simply returning the hostages and then stopping the bombing, right? So instituting a ceasefire. That is a far more plausible scenario than
Yeah, but
Hamas
the problem is
under
what you're
coercion.
advocating for is immoral. I don't know why we would say Israel no longer has a right to conduct military operations against Hamas. Where are you getting that from?
So I'm not trying. Here's the thing. Did I say don't have the right? Did I say that?
Oh,
At any
then if they have
point.
the right, then we have no disagreement. Israel has a right to conduct military operations. You're just talking
Yeah,
about what
yeah,
you would like
sure.
in a perfect prime world.
No. Because
Okay.
I'm not arguing on the right. Because I don't give a fuck about that. I don't understand why you.
Then what do you give a fuck about? What are you trying to optimize here?
If you're asking me personally, what I care is to end civilian deaths. So both sides. That I
This is not
value
a
what.
calculation in
Yeah,
war.
hold on, but you're asking me what I want. You're asking what I
that's
want.
fine.
So that's what I want.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But that's different from what I'm talking about.
Okay, gotcha. But then you
past-
should like clearly state that your position is ahistorical, not considered by any country in the entire world, and has no bearing on geopolitics ever. This is literally the Twitter position of like, I just want whatever reduces in the short term civilian death. That's not how war has ever been conducted in the history of all of mankind.
So hold on. You asked me what I want.
Okay,
I want.
understand. Okay, go ahead. Your position is just like completely unreasonable. But if it's what you personally
No,
want,
it's not
that's
completely
fine.
unreasonable. How is it completely unreasonable?
I just said it because it's ahistorical, because nobody in the history of all of warfare kind ever conducted war like this.
No, but your argument rests on justified, right? Like Israel is justified
Yes,
to do this.
correct.
Palestinians aren't justified to do that.
Correct.
But that's not how warfare works.
That is
It's
how it
not
works. That's
specifically
literally how it
but it's
works.
because of
They're all justified from their own perspectives. Like,
No, it's
saying-
not just from your
Yeah,
own
yeah,
perspective.
yeah,
This
they
is why
are,
people go to the
actually.
UN and they drop Security Council resolutions, and why they get support in
So
international
I don't
conflicts.
give a fuck
Moral
about the UN.
justification for conflicts is literally part of why people go to war and get support internationally for what they're doing. Of course, justification is important. That's why people are sanctioning Russia
Again,
more than
all
Ukraine
these
for the
people
war in.
are justified from their own perspective.
What?
The Palestinians the Gazans who were so enraged by the history of oppression that they dealt with, right? That they personally heard stories of family members, and
Yeah,
they've
I understand that you can
been spit on
make
by
those
Zoda.
arguments, but do you
Okay,
genuinely believe? But we're
okay,
not
but
them.
you say you make
We're
those
not-
arguments, but we're humans. We can understand how other human beings are going to react to conflict and to brutality. Yeah,
Who
it's not good,
cares?
but it's. is. You need to care, I think, if you give a fuck about long-term peace in the region.
No,
you need to
no,
understand
you
these are
don't want
humans,
long-term peace.
and
You
humans
want
are
the reduction of civilian
going to
conflict
react
right
a certain way
now.
to turmoil, to conflict, etc. You can't just write that off and expect them to be robots.
What do you think leads to long-term peace?
Okay, long term, I think that the one-state solution is the only viable.
No,
viable
on a
option,
macro
it seems.
level. What do you think leads to long-term peace?
Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean by the macro level?
Like in the world.
In the world.
I feel like long-term peace is when you have stable governments, strong economies, and you've got people that are willing to consider international opinion, broadly speaking, with other stable trading countries. I think that these are the things that, broadly speaking, lead to long-term peace. I don't think reduction of civilian casualties at all costs, I don't think that leads to long-term peace. Because
nobody said at all
reduction of
costs.
civilian casualties at all costs is literally, fuck, I don't know why my shit keeps changing. It's because of this fucking StreamYard program, that's why. Reduction of civilian casualties at all costs is literally a tit-for-tat game that gets taken advantage of by groups like the Houthis or by groups like
Well, it's a
Hamas.
good thing neither of us are supporting that. Nobody said that. We're
Then,
not saying at all
then why,
costs.
if you're not supporting that, then why in the fuck would you ever, then why would you support Israel not conducting whatever military operation they feel they need to eliminate Hamas?
Because at some point, even if they were to eliminate Hamas, if that requires or leads to the killing or the displacement of hundreds of thousands of millions of civilians, there's going to be a new Hamas in 10, 15, 20 years. It'll just happen all over again.
Okay.
So if you give a fuck long term about actual
No.
peace in the region,
I'm sorry.
You need to
I-
care about the way that
yeah.
humans will react to this.
I understand what you're saying, okay? The reason why this doesn't work is because the entire bro, oh my god. Okay, my mic is gonna keep going crazy because this is dog shit fucking program, okay? Because you guys want to use StreamYards, okay? It's your fault,
Hey,
all right?
I got in touch with the Iranian CIA. And I'm
Yeah,
fucking
clearly, okay. Because I think
you
it's
can,
automatically
you can,
adjusts the mic
you can
button.
use go into the audio settings, the settings at the bottom, right? The settings.
Yeah, I see it. I unchecked to automatically adjust, but it still does it. Okay, I don't.
In echo
I feel
cancellation.
like there's debate that.
Yeah. Oh, my part. It gives me an advantage.
All right, testing. Okay, we'll see if this fucks it up. Okay.
Oh,
Hold on.
and,
What I'm
and
saying.
if it happens again, we can just move to Discord, right? I don't care.
No, it's fine.
just
I got
wanna
it.
talk
Okay.
to you.
Oh my god, now my mic is so fucking loud. Hello.
It's like,
Test.
you can be loud. It makes you sound more manly when you're loud. It's fine.
Yeah,
You sound like an
right.
authority figure when you're loud.
More authoritative. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay. What was it? Ceasefire with.
You were explaining. I was gonna be an asshole. You're explaining why. I'm still gonna be an asshole. Why we should expect Palestinians to be robots and not give a fuck about the emotional, human cost of Israel's war against.
Okay. If they can't put down weapons and start building a stable society or country. Oh, I remember what I was saying. You guys keep talking about this theoretical world, this mythical world, where future Palestinians are being radicalized against Israel. What you're missing is that Palestinians are already radicalized against Israel. They already all want the one-state solution. They already want to kick all the Israeli people out. There is zero incentive for Israel to do anything to help this population not hate them because they already view the population as already hating them. And they basically already do.
That's.
Supported by widespread polling data from all of the most reputable polling that's done
No.
in the region. Like,
Yes and no. Yes.
okay.
But I think that the reason when you deal with that, you see clearly underlying reasons. I think one of those underlying reasons is that it's a reason but I agree, we're justified that. Holding reasonable for getting shot at with fucking rockets. That's loads of people shooting rockets. I get it. That job's going to leave. You're killing a lot of civilians. You anger within the population.
I don't think
the more people
that
want to join that organization to fight.
Okay, what were they fighting for 40 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 60 years ago, or 70 years ago? If they've been fighting constantly for 80 years, why are we pretending like the reason for the fighting is because of this thing now?
Why are you pretending these are the same people with the same reasons?
Because it's the same type of conflict that's been going on for essentially 80 years. It hasn't really changed much in nature or character.
80 years ago, you had a totally different set of people, different experiences, fighting for, I'm sure, different reasons. Now you have this ongoing antagonism from the Israeli state, ongoing incitement from Iran, from all these other surrounding Arab countries, and from groups like Hamas. These are it's a different set of people, right?
And the Arab countries trying to go away from them, right? Like Saudi
so
Arabia.
I don't think it makes sense to say, well, 80 years this thing happened, so why weren't they doing this? Well, it's a different group of people. They weren't doing it. Right? I think today that there is there are legitimate grievances from a lot of the Palestinians on the ground against Israel. Right? And you need to deal with those grievances if you actually want to see peace.
Are they legitimate grievances?
Yeah.
Like what?
We can look at the West Bank, which I think you said repeatedly, you think is like indefensible. Right? Israel's the West Bank.
I don't know if I said it was indefensible. I just disagree with the settlements encroaching. I think it's bad. I think Israel should probably stop it. But indefensible? I mean, I don't know. If their view of the Palestinians is they're just going to engage in warfare continuously until they can kill all the Israeli people, then, I mean, like, asking Israel to stop the settlements or whatever is basically asking for a one-sided concession that, like, why would you even expect them to do it?
Wait, but when they have peace in the West Bank, you still have these settlers going in, and most of these people are like the religious right-wing Israelis.
Sure, they are.
But-
But like settlement
yeah.
expansion largely stopped, ironically enough, with Netanyahu even as prime minister, from like 95 or from basically after the Oslo Accords, and it still didn't result in a long-term peace agreement because it felt like the Palestinians and Arafat just wanted more territory. They just wanted to keep fighting for the one-state solution. So I don't know
Yeah,
why
I
they
mean,
would ever assume that like this is helpful or that the settlements need to stop. They pulled out all the settlements from the Gaza Strip. That's still like one of the most violent regions. What is the incentive for Israel to stop? Why would you? These people are going to hate us and want to kill us and fight against us infinitely anyway. Why the fuck would we stop expanding our stuff?
Okay, so you're saying that they shouldn't do anything about the underlying reasons or the antagonism that might be driving radicalism or violence toward Israel. They should continue the things that are antagonizing these Palestinians, even Palestinians who might not support Hamas or might not be
I'm sorry.
sort of like a Jew hatred.
We need to understand this, okay? And if we disagree on this, we need to disagree on this. It's fine, but it fundamentally hampers our ability to have a conversation. You guys are both under the assumption that 90% plus of the Palestinian hatred for Israel is just due to Israeli antagonism today. I think that's probably accounts for less than 15%. That's the issue. I think it's a minor reason. When you've got a country that has been in conflict for 80 years, and then one party, the Palestinians, have been supported by all the other people to be in that conflict for basically the entire time, to say that magically at some point, like what year did it switch to the oppression was the reason why Palestinians wanted to kill Israeli people? Like what was the year or time period where that magical switch happened? Rather than it was just a continuation of all the same grievances they've always had.
There doesn't have to be I don't know why you're making this. So there doesn't have to be a year, right? Like me, I'm a kid. I'm bored in Gaza. I don't know. Let's say West Bank, right? I'm bored within the West Bank. I come into the world, thinking everyone's fun and great. I'll come up and I'll hug them and whatever the fuck, right? But as I grow up, I recognize there's differences and how people are treated. I see that there's these other people who can come into the neighborhood where I live and who can abuse the people that I love, right? And they have no consequences, right? Now, I might not be aware of the history. Maybe my parents told me about it, maybe it didn't. But if I see my friends getting arrested for no reason, if I see people being killed, if I see houses being bulldozed at, then me, being born in the 1980s, in the 1990s, the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, right? Me, I might have a reason, right? Whether you think it's legitimate or illegitimate, I might have a reason to believe that I am being oppressed. And from there, that will dictate my actions. Not everyone, not every person, even within the conflict, right? Even any conflict, the Palestinians or the Jews have a deep understanding of the history of the peace deal.
This type of ultimately individually morally relativistic argument just fails completely. Because if you want to go down this route, then fine, then I'll just go down the Israeli route. Let's say I was born in Israel and I thought that we were cool and I thought that everybody loved each other, and then I grow up and I find out, wow, there's one community of people that has been launching rockets into us for 25 years, even though they keep saying they don't have enough money to, fuel their hospitals or their population, or wow, we're existing in this region where the UN keeps telling us that we're doing wrong thing after wrong thing, even though the people who are supposedly peaceful to us to the east literally have a martyr fund to support the families of people that commit fucking jihad against us or whatever the fuck the shit is. Oh man, there are other countries around this region that are also supporting shooting missiles at us. Holy fuck, all the way over in Yemen they're shooting missiles at us. Oh my god, Hezbollah is shooting rockets at us from neighboring countries, right? So now I feel like I should be fighting against these people forever.
Yeah.
That's
totally reasonable. Understandable.
No. That's not reasonable. That's why we don't use moral relativism when we judge people on the world stage. That's why we try to carve out what we think is right or wrong, and we try to find a side that's more righteous to support, and then we go that way. Otherwise, everybody's got reasons to do everything. It doesn't mean anything.
Destiny. me and Doobie and I aren't trying to judge them, right? I'm not trying to, in this moment, judge the Israelis. I might have my own opinions, but like that doesn't matter. I'm looking for a path to peace. How do I actually get there? I can understand that there's reasons, whether I think they're legitimate or not, right? Let's say like I was totally in the bag for Palestinians, and I wanted some sort of equitable solution for them, and I thought like the Israelis were evil, right? But I can still understand that those evil Israelis like have a reason to have gotten there, because I don't think they're a human animal in the end, right? I can understand they have justification, and they have demands that must be met, right? That's the only way it's going to happen. I can get that. I don't know why you can't get that for the other side. I'm simply saying.
So I think
I've already got it for the other side. This is the argument that I make the whole time. Both sides think that fighting infinitely is going to achieve some end for them. One side is fucking delusional. And the sooner Palestinians realize that they're delusional and continuing conflict with Israel, the sooner maybe they can come to the table and try to make some sort of peaceful agreement. But as long as they want to continue fighting, Israel, like I said in the very beginning, I said that Israel dynamically responds to the situations around them. If the surrounding Arabs want peace, they take peace. If they want to fight, then they fight and they win. That's what Israel does. So if the Palestinians want to continue to fight, Israel will keep fighting and expanding their territory. We'll stop.
It doesn't matter if they're delusional. That doesn't matter. You seem to think that that means anything to anyone, that they're delusional.
As an outsider third party trying to evaluate which side we ought to support, it does matter who's delusional.
I'm not trying to support.
Oh, so you don't support either side? Then you don't choose one side or the other? You have no preference?
I'm saying my I've said this, audience members. I hope you hear this, right? I hope I feel like I'm being gaslit here, because I've said it multiple times. Is that like when looking at this peace deal, I think it's best to step back, right, and not necessarily look at from one side or the other, right? I have my preferences. I do have my personal preferences. You know I have my personal preferences.
Wait, then how do you decide who's in the right in a conflict and who you want to support?
I don't have to.
Wait, then how do you figure out what the steps are to resolve a particular conflict?
I don't think it makes sense to say that.
No, wait. I want to hear that. I want to hear this. In a world where you have no preference whatsoever about who's right or wrong, how do you decide which side to support in a conflict?
I'm not trying, because Destiny. I guess I don't have the words for this. Maybe I don't.
Okay,
Maybe
easy. We're using South Africa. Who do you support? Do you support the ANC or do you support the apartheid South African government? Which one would you have supported?
Friend.
Wait, hold on. So even in that, just really quickly, man. So even in that conflict, right, or that incident in South Africa, you had white South Africans, white farmers, white.
Please don't say you got all these people just for this. I know that. I don't care. I'm asking you. Who do you support?
Listen.
I know, but you're gonna waste like 10 minutes talking about everybody has their reasons for why they want them. I don't care.
What I would support is the removal of the apartheid system.
There you go. So you do have a support.
One second. What I would support Israel and Palestine is the end to the conflict, the end of violence, right, between these two groups of people. Like
no, stop. No, that's not true. Stop.
Actually,
you're lying. Stop lying. Because you don't support peace. Okay? You support a just resolution. If I would have told you, hey, by the way, if you want peace in South Africa, the ANC needs to stop fighting.
That's extremely pedantic, please.
No!
If you're going to say, oh, well, you don't support, if you said that you support peace, that's not true, because you wouldn't support peace if men murdering everybody that's against peace. It's ridiculous. Of course I'm not saying that.
It's important. It is important because the same type of argument that you're talking about was literally one of the largest arguments against civil rights. It was an uneasy peace that was forced upon the black man in the United States, okay? Said by our famous, lovely person, Martin Luther King Jr., right? The idea of just, like, obsessing over peace was literally one of the chief complaints of civil rights people. Hold on, you just said, oh, God. What part did I just say that you don't understand? And I can say back slower to you.
The issue with that, because the issue, I understand what you're saying. I just think it's stupid.
What's stupid?
The issue with that comparison is that even in the case of civil rights, right? So I would say that things like Jim Crow, things that are creating an unequal system in the United States, long term, are actually detrimental to any kind of peace. You can't have a peace long term if this is the case.
Okay, that's an amazing point. That's why earlier, when I asked this exact question, what you just said, I agree with you 1,000,000,000%. That's why I said, what do you think leads to long-term peace on the macro level? And my answer was, like, economically prosperous, stable nations that are trading with other countries on a broad level. That was my answer. But your guys' answer, or at the very least, Prime's answer, was the reduction of civilian casualties. And that isn't a way towards peace. That's why I then gave the example of,
That
well,
was-
would you make peace with
I didn't
Nazi
say that.
Germany?
I
Would
didn't
you
say
make
that.
peace with...
That's not what I said.
Okay.
That's not what I said.
Okay, so then we all agree then that, like, peace is irrelevant. No one cares about peace. What we really care about is justice. That's what we care about, right? Okay, what do you care about then?
I care about justice, right? There wasn't justice that happened after the end of slavery, right? Like the slaves weren't compensated for their bondage, right? That they weren't made whole. They
No,
were
but
let out.
it was more just than where we came from.
It was an increase, yes.
Okay.
And within a peace agreement, you can have a movement towards justice,
Yes,
right?
yes, correct.
Oftentimes that is the case, that you can have movement towards justice.
Yep.
But many times in peace deals, like there are hard feelings left on one side or the other.
Yep.
It simply is the case, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying that rather than yourself mired within the individual conflicts, within the individual justifications, you can simply recognize that there are reasons for people fighting, and that if you address them, right, try to address them in as equitable fashion as you can, then you can have a path towards peace.
When you
All right,
say equitable, the implication there is that the demands are reasonable. And you can't just say you want peace, it has to be a just peace. Because if you want peace, then you would have agreed with the extremist position I led out earlier, that what you really want is just a mass ethnic cleansing, because nothing would lead to peace in Israel-Palestine quicker than a mass ethnic cleansing.
was it a just peace in South Africa? Right after the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, like, in case people don't know, right? In the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, you had people getting amnesty, right? People within both the apartheid government and the
No, we get it.
anti-apartheid
It's
side.
fine. We get it. Go ahead.
No, let me say, right?
Let me summarize the whole 5-minute rant we were about. Was it peace
Hold on,
when
I'm
some
not
people that
doing
were on the
a
bad guys'
5-minute
side
rant.
ended
I'm
up getting
not doing a
amnesty when they should have been
5-minute
held accountable? And was that
I
peaceful?
swear I'm not doing a 5-minute ramble.
Oh my
I
God.
was going to do a 20-second ramble. If you let me get So the point is that like they presented themselves in front of the council, and what they did, how that process worked, is that individuals stated their crimes, right? Crimes that happened within a particular time period for the purposes of a political party, right? To advance their political aims, right? But what they didn't have to do, is say, "I'm sorry." You actually didn't have to. You just could roll up in there, stated, "Yeah, I killed a fuck ton of black people. And let me tell you how I tortured each and every one of them. And maybe I'm even fucking glad about it, right?" But that's all you had to do, was state that. So, was it just, the question I'm asking you, was it just a just peace when those people got amnesty? They weren't didn't have jail time, or they weren't executed, or they weren't hanged. Was that a just peace?
It was more just than what came before. And the goal is steps towards justice. Leaving Hamas or having a Palestinian group of people that want to kill you and leaving them there are not steps towards justice.
But I said I agreed. I don't have to tell you. because
Then
you
what
can
are
tell
our
me,
disagreements
right?
right now? Then you tell me what our disagreements are.
What did I say about Hamas? What were my feelings about Hamas?
You said that I think you wanted them removed. I'm not entirely sure. But then you also said you wanted a ceasefire, so I'm not entirely sure. I don't actually know what your position is. Because I feel like you said that... Have you said that Israel is justified in destroying Hamas? Have you said that?
Yeah.
Have you said that?
I said...
No, wait, answer this.
yes,
Have you said that...
I
Yes,
have,
okay.
yeah.
Have you also said that you want a ceasefire?
Yes, sir. I want a ceasefire. I'm saying that there are steps
Okay,
towards it.
then what did I just say that was so funny? Because you wanted two things that are entirely
what's so funny-
contradictory.
No, yeah, sure. What was so funny is that you were unsure. When
I said I was unsure because you have contradictory
Okay.
positions that don't make any sense.
Look,
You want to
when
ceasefire with
this-
a terrorist
when
force,
this-
but you also think that Israel is justified in destroying that terrorist organization. How are these two
When this
positions?
is
Wait, no,
made-
reconcile these two positions for me. How do these both make sense?
Right, I'll get that in a second. When this is made to a bot, someone out there, please.
Can you just- how do these two positions make
no,
sense?
hold on. DGG, right? I want you to count out how many times I stated my position on Hamas. Please, like, put a counter there so people can fucking know how many times I've said it. Thank you. Okay. So, what was your question again? Sorry, I was filled with righteous outrage. Go ahead.
How can you reconcile the destruction of Hamas with also a ceasefire?
Destruction of Hamas, also ceasefire. I'm saying,
Okay, you don't even understand your own position. Why are you laughing
No,
at me
no,
for not understanding your position then, okay? You can't even literally explain it. Like,
hold on.
Jesus.
I'm sorry, Stephen. I took a moment to like think about my answer. I do apologize. I didn't fire off the hip. Like that. So.
You guys are hot when you scream at each other.
I mean, I'm erect. I'm fully erect. So, and he's doing what he needs to do to calm down. It's great. But anyway, so the reason why, so I'm saying that like the path to peace, the one that actually works out in the long run, is one where Hamas disappears, right? And
so then why would you have a ceasefire? I don't understand that. How would you do a ceasefire if you want Hamas to disappear?
Hamas disappear. Yeah, you think that one, that it's impossible to dismantle Hamas, like fully degrade their operations without like a straight up ethnic cleansing. That seems to be my opinion here.
What? I just asked you, how can you get Hamas to disappear if you do a ceasefire with them?
No, you asked me a second question.
No, that's the question I'm asking right now. How do you get Hamas to disappear if you want a ceasefire? I'm trying to reconcile your two positions when you say we should get rid of Hamas completely, but we should also do a ceasefire. I don't know how these two positions are not contradictory.
Sure. Okay. All right. I'll state it because I've stated this before. I'll state it again. No,
Thank you. Okay.
Sure. Okay. You start with this. You start with the ceasefire. Okay. You start with the ceasefire, and then you can say that this ceasefire is dependent on peace talks, right? And good faith steps that must be taken on both sides to achieve like solid negotiations. So anyway, right? Like these negotiations would include, because as I've said many times, Hamas being either demilitarized or completely.
And you think Hamas would agree to a peace talk where the terrorist group Hamas, who wants to destroy all of Israel, is going to demilitarize?
If there is a credible path to peace, yeah, there might be a possibility. Yeah, because
okay, even though all the polling data shows that Palestinians actually want to fight with Israelis.
And where did I think? Where do you think? I think that polling comes from, right? Like, what are the reasons behind that polling? I've stated it many times.
Yeah, it's ahistorical and baseless. The answer is because they want to have
what was it?
What did you think? It's because of the conditions that they're subject to.
Not just that, right? There was another.
And the humiliation.
No. It
and
was
the fact that there wasn't a reasonable road to peace.
Yes, there's no reasonable road to peace, and that in any conflict, if there's no reasonable road to peace, people are just going to want to fight.
Yeah, but the road to peace, the peace they want, is them having a one-state solution.
There was more appetite at some point in time in Israel. Okay, there was more appetite for peace, right? Like,
okay, hold on. I don't know why we're talking about. Okay, this is so simple.
But at some point there was.
Don't care.
There was a point.
Listen, do you think right now that the majority of Palestinians want a one-state solution or a two-state solution?
I'm saying that it doesn't actually matter.
It doesn't matter what they want when you're trying to negotiate peace?
I'm saying that, like, it doesn't matter, like, what they want if there is no path to peace, right? Like, I can want.
No, you keep saying.
two-state.
I'm sorry. Hold on. You're so American-brained right now. Okay. You keep saying this path to peace because for you in America, the status quo works. So when there's no violence, it's good. That's the path to peace. But the problem is in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine, there is not a path. Nobody cares about peace over there. They want justice. And in the Palestinian eyes, their perception of justice is a one-state solution. You keep saying path to peace because as a Westerner, the only thing that your eyes can ever fucking perceive are civilian casualties. That's the only thing you see. You don't see anything else besides that.
No,
so I'm asking you again, if there's a group of people and they want a one-state solution, how do you ever get on a path to peace when their path to perceived peace is directly in conflict with the Israeli path to peace? How do you resolve that?
You show good faith. All right. So I'll end this soon because clearly we just can't get past.
Because you want to engage with the question.
No, I have engaged with the question. Destiny, no, you're just being obtuse. You just are pretending that I haven't said what I've said multiple times. That I haven't stated my points.
Okay.
Many times.
Sorry.
Like,
tell me. Okay. So go ahead. Okay. So
that's okay.
Path to peace. Tell me how do we do the path to peace for Palestinians when that directly conflicts with the path to peace for Israelis? when Israel wants a country and Palestinians don't want them to have a country. How do you reconcile these two positions? Or do you think it will magically change if Israel just eases up on the blockade?
I'm saying that Israel, that the path that Israel wants to take to achieve their goals has costs. Costs they might not be willing to bear. That includes, like from like an ethnic cleansing standpoint, a loss of international support and possibly
Okay,
regional.
hold on. Everything you're just saying is not true. So go to the next point. Because so far, Israel has dramatically improved its position in the world over the past 80 years. Yeah, excuse me.
No,
yeah.
sorry. No, I'm talking about since October 7th, and that this is what I'm.
It's a road bump. I don't think many people will care.
You don't think many people will care?
Oh no, you don't think people would really care if they actually carried out an ethnic cleansing?
If they actually got a full ethnic cleansing, they probably would care, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, so that's what I was referring to, right? Like.
Oh, well, that's not happening, so I don't know. We would refer to something that's not happening. But I think right now,
But you're saying it's a fine thing that they go through ethnic cleansing. Like if Hamas, right, that you say is completely who's completely unwilling and unable to come to negotiations or to do anything that would lead to a ceasefire, right? Like in your opinion, that this organization that are completely incapable of doing that, then well, you just kill them all, right? Then just kill them all. You've stated that many times.
If they want to fight to the bitter end, then they are allowed to fight to their bitter end. That's their right as Palestinians. If they want to do it, knock themselves out, I guess. But I don't know why we would force Israel to acquiesce to them. Most of the Middle East doesn't even support the Palestinian cause right now.
Okay, I feel like you're not drawing the distinction, right? So I think we all agree, Hamas, unreasonable, bad. Okay. I don't think there's any reason to believe that the Palestinians, as a group, or in Gaza, would want to fight to the bitter end. Would want to
They
fight
literally do. They literally said that okay, that's fine if you don't believe that, but most of the polling data, even from before October 7th, shows that Palestinians believe that they should continue. Yes, they want to fight.
Yeah. Okay,
most of the Palestinians still support the October 7th attacks. It's like 82% of the West Bank. It's 57% of the Gaza Strip.
But as Prem laid out earlier, right, so one of the contributing factors to this could be that they don't believe there's a political path to peace, right? And given that I think you agree that the right-wing push in Israel for the last couple of decades, and Netanyahu himself, none of these people actually want peace because the status quo benefits them. If that is the case, if the people on the other side of the table from these Palestinians who might want peace don't actually want peace,
you've got to. Okay, I'm sorry. We have to stop. Okay, new rule for this debate. We have to stop using the word peace because I don't know if you guys. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. Okay. Nobody wants peace here. They want a one-state solution. That's what they want. They don't want peace. Palestinians don't want peace.
Yeah, that's peace. That long-term.
Yes, is a one-state solution, which then in direct conflict with.
Is peace.
Well, no, and because they don't really want the Jewish people from the Israeli country to live there either. Or at the very least, they want to control it. What do you mean that's not true?
Okay, hold on. So, to be clear, when I say that's not true, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want the Israeli Jews to live there, right? I'm totally fine with them living there. I'm just saying they should live there as equals with the Palestinian Arabs, right, in a single state. And obviously that's a long-term project, and I agree, farther off than any kind of two-state solution, though, like I said earlier, I do think that seems to me to be the only way to have like a lasting peace long-term. I think anything else is going to be
What is a lasting peace long-term? It's the one-state solution that you have no evidence to work, when there's been mass violence from Palestinians towards Israeli citizens, when Palestinians don't even want literally, it is the most Western idea ever that you want to impose a solution that neither side of these people want. None of them want this. And you're saying this is what they really do want. Like,
when in the polls that you've seen where they call for a one state, like a single Palestinian state, I think you should have no Palestinian state, a single state. Those polls also say that they want to expel the Jews?
My understanding is they don't want equal rights for Jewish and Muslim citizens. I can try and find this poll. I don't know if it was in the most recent one.
My understanding is that's not true. What they do want is one man, one vote. And the reason the Israelis don't want this is because they want to maintain their ethno state for reasons you could say legitimate or illegitimate. I don't think the ethno state.
That's fine, even though every single other country in that region maintains an ethno state.
No, it's not the same.
It absolutely is the same. What do you mean it's not the same? Wait, how is it not the same?
It's absolutely not the same. Oh no, so the Jews are an ethno-religious group, plopped down with an ethno state, plopped down in an area where the demographic reality makes that ethnicity impossible to maintain without keeping people out of the fucking country. Right? For a long, people right next door to you, they can't immigrate, they can't come back home because of just the demographics. So I think long term Israel's going to need to soften on that or let go of that for there to be peace, because this is one of the driving factors in the conflict.
Is that what is one of the driving factors?
That they're attempting to maintain an ethno-state, an ethnic majority within Israel.
No. That has nothing to do with that is not a driving factor for the conflict. It's a non-factor.
Why would you think?
Why would it be?
Okay. So if you, just think it through, right? So there's an ethno-supremacist ideology.
What, ethno-supremacist? Where are all these terms coming from? What?
Okay.
Jews have one country? How many countries do Muslims have? Like 60 plus? What do you mean ethno-supremacist?
Irrelevant. Yeah, hold on. So it's coming from the religion, right? So the religious right in Israel is growing in power. There is an ethnocentric or ethno-supremacist ideology built into that religion.
Okay, I don't think I don't even know theologically if that's true.
I think it is. And
I'm almost
not
positive it's not. I'm pretty sure that I don't think that, for instance, like as part of Judaism, I don't think you believe that non-Jewish people are all condemned to hell. In Islam, you actually have separate dhimmi status for people that aren't part of your religion. They live as like separate citizens, arguably, depending on what country you're living in.
I'm not like I said before, I'm probably more Islamic. I'm not a fan of Islam or Christianity or Judaism, but I think what tends to happen is people tend to minimize the impact of the religious right in Israel and what that religion actually is, right? So what these beliefs are. There is absolutely built into Judaism a separation between Jews and non-Jews. There are rules for what can happen with Jews and rules for what can happen with non-Jews. And it's not as simple as we're going to keep to ourselves. There are rules about that set them above non-Jews spiritually. The covenant of God.
I'm sorry. This is a delusional position. You're telling me that like the religion of Islam, okay, that is like part of its stated goal, tries to convert as many people arguably as possible, that is engaged in terrorist attacks all over the fucking country, that has 60 plus countries and half of them fucking have forms of Sharia law or theocratic regimes, and then you're gonna say those people are really upset that there's an ethno-supremacist group who are the Jews, who haven't even recovered from their post-Holocaust numbers, who are pogromed and fucking murdered all over the fucking world just for being Jewish, okay, who had to flee almost every single Arab country after every single successive Arab-Israeli war, that they're worried about those guys being ethno-supremacists? That's fucking wild.
No, that's not
Hold
what
on, no, I don't care about any of this right. Nothing you say is going to convince me unless you come with like some incredibly compelling evidence, because historically, that is the most unbelievable statement I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well, it's great because that's not what I said, right? I'm not saying these 60 countries or all these other. I'm talking about the Palestinian Arabs who are living in the area where this ethno-state has popped up next to them, right? And where they've been living for decades. They've grown up with this ethno-state next to them. There's a separate status for Jews and non-Jews, where the religious right that has fucking terrible beliefs regarding non-Jews is gaining power over the last couple of decades. Right, so
isn't there an equal treatment under the law generally, or is it like what, you have to be like Jewish to marry somebody or whatever? Isn't it generally like pretty equal treatment under the law? It's not like they have like ethno divides in terms of like legal treatment for.
Yes and no. I think that so like I said, the religious right in Israel has been gaining power, I think, in recent years. One expression of this, and this is very controversial within Israel. So I'm not saying that every Israeli Jew believes this. I'm not saying that. It's controversial in Israel and among Jews in the United States. The nation-state law, which made it explicit that Israel is a nation for Jews,
sure,
Jewish culture, Jewish people, Jewish religion, etc.
Yeah, it has to be a priority for like their legislation stuff. Sure, that's fine. Okay. You can call that like super controversial, but like has that resulted in like discriminatory laws against like non-ethnic Jews or whatever? Or like what are these huge differences that we're talking about? Because keep in mind, even with that nation-state law, you literally have Islamist parties that are represented in the Knesset. Like, you literally have people that advocate for Islamism that are part of their parliament. So, I mean, like, what are the ways that these laws are, like, destroying ethnic minorities or whatever in Israel?
I didn't say they're destroying ethnic minorities.
What is the uneven treatment? If they're ethno-supremacist.
Okay. So it's one of the driving factors behind the conflict. So, in the way that, so, when they... Even having the concern about demographics, even having the opposition to the Jewish minority or the potential of a Jewish minority in the future, again, what are the driving reasons? They pulled out of Gaza, pulled out of the West Bank, because they don't want these people to request a vote. Right? Not just because they're afraid of what the Arabs might do to them, but because they literally want to have an ethno-religious state for the Jews. Right? So, and you can see this on the West Bank. The things that are happening on the West Bank, a lot of that is driven by religion, by the Jewish religion. Right?
I don't know if they're scared so much about having an ethno-religious state, so much as they're scared that the group of people that most want to immigrate to their area seem to also be highly invested in their destruction. I think that's probably the driving pressure.
I agree that I'm going to agree that it's a combination, right? But I think that I don't think that it makes sense to disregard the religious aspect on either side. There's absolutely a religious aspect on both sides, and the attitudes that come from the religious aspect are obstacles to peace.
Okay, hold on.
What you don't like the word peace to justice to whatever the fuck.
Wait, what percentage of like the Palestinian hatred for Israel comes from the fact that they have an ethno state?
Yeah, I haven't seen that stuff. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say like.
Okay, you laugh every time I ask you because the problem is I'm trying to get a gauge for how much you think is relevant. I can give you rough percentages for what I think is contributing to the conflict. If you're unable to do that or unwilling to do so, then it tells me a lot about your position. Do you think this is like 1% of their hatred towards Israel, or do you think it's like 90% of their hatred towards Israel? If you're like can't even fathom, then why even bring it up as a point?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to just pull a number out of my ass and lie to you.
I'm not asking you to give me like a statistical like 47.289% of the people that live in Hebron don't like Israel. I'm just curious, like what percentage do you think plays into the conflict? Because I don't see any of this brought up historically ever from any surrounding Arab state, from any Palestinian person, from any Palestinian leader, from any Arab leader, anybody ever. I've never in my life heard this reason. You're presenting this to me as an American that lives in America. You're presenting to me a novel reason for why Palestinians don't like Israel that also conveniently plays into your narrative. I've never heard this ever situated ever in these regions. Why would I not go by what the leaders say, right? Whether we're talking about Nasser in Egypt, said he wants to remove all Jews from this land, from Palestine proper, okay, because he doesn't think they belong there. Why wouldn't I listen to people like Arafat, who are so invested in the destruction of Israel that they're willing to coup other leaders around them to do it? Why wouldn't I listen to Hamas when they say that they want to get rid of all, like, I've got all these people that tell me over and over again, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. But you, an American in the West, like, well, actually, I think it's just because they don't like the fact that Jews try to maintain their ethnic demographics there because they're worried they'll be genocided. Why would I believe that? Like, under what is the rationalization for that?
And I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm saying it's both. It's all the above.
But there's got to be like but we can't just say it's every single reason. There has to be like some things that are really big factors that we got to push.
Like so if you were gonna ask me for like a what my
I don't think it's very complex. But
my perception of like how big of an influence is. I'm gonna say like 45%.
Okay, but you've never heard a single Palestinian leader or any Arab ever state anything like this ever.
Let me explain. Yeah, because again, it's the ethno-state, but also the ethnocentrism, right? And also the religious right in Israel, and how the religion, the attitudes that come from the religion, are driving the settlers in the West Bank to continue their antagonism, and how like this all affects the conflict. These are all the hurdles that they need to get over. You can't just say, oh well, who gives a fuck? These Israeli settlers are doing it because they believe that they're owed the land because it's
I don't think I think that not only do they not care that they're ethnocentric, they probably would expect them to be. I don't think anybody has this. Of course they do. That's why in Muslim caliphates they literally had carve-outs for people to have their own little religious, sometimes even ethno-religious communities. They literally, everybody expects people to do this. That's I understand in America that feels weird and bad because we're like multicultural, diverse, blah 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 blah. But in a lot of other parts of the world, they kind of expect that. It's like, yeah, Japan is really xenophobic. As an American, that sounds horrible. The Japanese are like, yeah, fuck these Westerners, fuck white people, fuck brown people, fuck that shit, right? Or if you go to the Middle East, yeah, they're gonna say like, yeah, obviously we have ethnic preferences. Obviously we have preferences for our own religious group. Like obviously we discriminate against other types of religions. Like they literally kill people that leave their religion. They kill apostates. Like how is it so unbelievable that they would expect like, oh, of course I would expect Jewish people to be ethnocentric. That's part of what all of their Jewish conspiracies based on, the idea that Jews all over the world share the same ethnic identity, where they're trying to push for the the funding and the support of the Israeli state. I think they would I don't think any Arab person would be like, we think that Jewish people should not be so ethnic centric. They would say like, we think Jews should get the fuck out of here, go be ethnic centric somewhere else.
Right. Okay, but this is why it matters to them, because they're not going to go be ethnocentric somewhere else. They're going ethnocentric here. Where there are many people who are not Jewish, right? Either living in the Jewish state or living right next to the Jewish state that is attempting to expand its borders because they want more land for their ethno state. So I don't think you can separate the two. I think it is something that needs to be addressed, and I think it's one of the major roadblocks to like a one-state solution.
So, we're running into time. I know you have another debate coming up.
No, fuck Will.
True.
I'm just joking. I love Will. He's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Shout out to Rick. It's a good time. But I've never respect your time. And it seems like we've run into multiple roadblocks. This was as frustrating as it always is to debate with you, Stephen. But I do appreciate.
I'm just curious, like, is there a single Palestinian or Arab leader that is advocating for, like, that agrees with any of these statements that either of you have made?
Which ones?
Like that, like, oh, we just want like a peaceful, friendly, one-state solution where we all live in harmony, or we just want like peace with the Israelis so that we can like all exist together in two states. Like, where are these Israeli leaders? Or I'm sorry, where are these Arab leaders that say stuff like this? Or where's like the evidence in the past of history of Arabs wanting to pursue this?
So my understanding, leaders within Gaza has been that they've been suppressed, killed, and any opposition to Gaza has been suppressed.
Okay, but hold on. Even the opposition, even the oppression in Gaza started because in 2004 and 2005, Abbas was trying to negotiate peace with Israel, and Hamas and other extremist factions couldn't stop fucking shooting rockets into fucking Israel.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood me. Or you didn't misunderstand me. I misspoke, right? So when I say suppression of Gaza, I meant suppression of political leaders, political factions that might oppose Hamas, right? It might have some, like, Hamas has suppressed them. So this is another reason I agree with you. There's no path forward without Hamas being wiped out to some extent or taken out of power. But if you look at those polls, if you were to look at those polls again, I can do like a Google flu search right now, but I'm sure if you were to look at those polls again, typically what these Arabs are asking for is a single state with equal rights, not with more rights for Arabs or more rights for Jews, but with equal rights. And again, I can understand the Israeli opposition to this. It's totally reasonable for them to think that if they were to have this wave of new Arabs in the country, they'd be fucking genocided. I totally get that, which is why I think that it needs to be taken out of the hands of these two groups of people. I don't think that they can deal with this alone. You have two traumatized groups of people lashing out at each other. I think the international community needs to take a stronger role in settling things out.
Which means, and the stronger role is just a ceasefire and...
No. I mean, like I said earlier, I would agree with like an occupation by Saudi or even by the United States, some other organization that comes in, boots on the ground to ensure that to ensure the security, to ensure that there's no like a further conflict after this current thing. And then from that point, I think you can start working toward peace and figuring out what that looks like. But I don't think you can just leave Israel to do it on their own, because I think from their perspective, it's totally reasonable for them to want to just ethnically cleanse these people and get rid of them because they're fucking crazy. Like I understand that perspective. I think it's reasonable, but not okay.
Okay, if you scroll down, this is from 2000 and 2022. If you go to page 7.
Oh, hold on. Just
Figure 2.
Oh, I see.
You can see support for the two-state solution and two alternatives among Palestinians and Israeli Jews in 2020 and 2022. It looks like more Palestinians and more Israeli Jews, both of them support one non-democratic state without equality. And then more than that for almost everybody else, they support a two-state solution. So
I'm sorry, which page is this on? I think I missed
the bottom of page 7. I don't know where this idea comes from, that the majority of Palestinians, or even the majority of Israelis, support a one-state solution with equal one voice, one vote, or one person, one vote.
Okay, so that's interesting. So first off, I think if this is correct, then you're right. But I guess I would draw attention to how close those two numbers are, and it's not as if the one state with the equality thing is just at 5%. There is support for this within the country, right? Within it seems like Israel and Palestine, I think you said. So if that's the case,
the support is 20% of people for Israeli Jews and 23% of people
as of when?
For Palestinians. In 2022. I don't know what the numbers look like now. I imagine they're probably worse
they're
now.
Probably much worse now, yeah.
So in 2022, in December, only 20% of Israeli Jews support a one democratic state with equality, and only 23% of Palestinians in 2022 support one democratic state with equality.
Okay, but I think this kind of feeds into the other point that Prem and I were making, is that you have two groups of people here that from their perspectives have legitimate reasons to hate each other and not to want to be.
No, why do you? Okay, we just disagree on that. You guys
Why?
believe this, but you won't admit it. You keep thinking that both sides have equal reasons to not like each other, but that's not. If they
That's not what
both
it
did.
said.
Then why do you keep saying they both
From
have
their own
reasons to hate each other?
perspectives, right? Hold on. So
From their
because
own perspectives doesn't
because
matter. We're
I have
third parties.
human
We're not
empathy
any of them. We don't have to evaluate it from their.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, because I don't think you come to peace by fucking hassling over who's exactly right about every single thing.
You literally do. That's literally how you come to peace. Yes. What do you mean that's not? I'm sorry, hold on. Can you give me an example of a single conflict through all of human history that's been resolved without somebody considering which side might be more right or which side might be more wrong? Did the United States not pick good guys and bad guys in World War I, in World War II, in Vietnam, in Korea, in the First or Second Gulf War, in literally every single intervention? No, we don't. We just...
No, we picked the side that was more beneficial to our interests.
But you don't think the sides that are... Okay, even if you say the side that's more beneficial to our interest, we're making a choice there. It's not just... like random, or we're not saying like both sides ought to resolve their things equally.
Do you think any of those conflicts are in any way comparable to this current situation?
No, I don't think they're necessarily. I don't know if any of those would be analogous, but I'm just saying that when I'm looking at a conflict, I wouldn't just say like, oh, we should just resolve it 50-50 for everybody. You would consider which side you think.
No one has said that.
But if you're considering, you're implying it when you keep saying that both sides. When you say that both sides, when you say both sides need to take steps towards peace, the implication is that both sides are equally responsible for the unpeace. That's the implication.
No, you've said it multiple times. I don't. Okay, I love you, Steve. I really do. I really have a deep appreciation for you, friend. But like, I don't know why that you've like refused to listen to us on these points. Like, I've tried
okay, I'm sorry.
times.
Then hold on. Then I can be
suggest-
totally wrong. I'm totally wrong. I'm sorry. Then can both of you please state who should make a bigger effort towards peace?
I don't know about bigger effort.
Okay, you were just about to do a whole fucking rant when I was completely right with what I said. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Oh my
No,
god.
no. How does that prove anything? How does it prove anything? I have like bigger effort. Like maybe the Palestinians should make a bigger effort. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think we're in debate, Brahma. Okay, so I think what he means bigger effort, I guess. So, from both their perspectives, the effort put forward is going to be massive, right? Palestinians are going to need to be okay with not fucking bombing Israelis, right? Not murdering Israelis if they want peace to happen. Israelis need to be okay with not fucking going around and finding every single Hamas member murdering them or killing them. And so yeah, there's going to be an effort, right? Short term. Then long term, you need to figure out, okay, well, in the West Bank, this West Bank thing, right? Is it a massive effort for us to stop building settlements there? Or do we say that the Palestinians just need to put up with it and stop getting to talk about the settlements and live with it, right? Hey, we lost territory. Shit, it is what it is. Like, yeah, there's going to be effort on all sides, right? We're saying it doesn't make sense to see that one, in the West Bank situation or in the Gaza situation, one side is more right. It really doesn't fucking matter because what I'm saying is you have two groups of people who have, from their perspectives, which might be wrong, might be right, who gives a fuck. They have legitimate grievances and
Do you think one side's grievances are more legitimate than the other here, or no?
I'm saying, look, we're saying that the opposite of what you're saying. That like,
does one side have a stronger moral authority here?
We do care about the what peace is, right?
Okay.
Whatever that might look like, whether it be one state or two states.
Does
right?
one side have a Does one side have a stronger moral
we
authority
can
here?
understand that we can have a peace
Jesus.
that is unjust.
Hi.
Okay.
Does one side? Would you say one side has a stronger moral authority? Hi. Thank you, babe. I love you.
I love her too, or whoever this person is.
Do we agree with that, or do we disagree with that?
Oh, love them too. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to misgender.
Okay, listen. I love you guys. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now you want to leave. Okay. All right. Anyway, Steven, hold on, just last thing. Thank you, Steven, for engaging in this conversation. It was super frustrating, as usual, right?
Always.
To the audience, twitch.tv/PrimeKai, right, as it's spelled here, or youtube.com. I'm going to stick around for a little bit and, answer questions if people want to talk and, decompress and all that shit. But anyway, again, thank you, Steven, for having the conversation and to do it.
You both have perms in my Discord, so if you want to jump on a fight, just let me know. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
See you later, mister.
Let me go. I have to use my perfect thing. One second.
looks worn. I noticed that.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Ooh. We're my Talmudic warriors. Guys, we need to do more Israeli branding. We need to dump the Taliban.
Write that down.
Buddy?
Wow, hi.
Hi.
What's
I
up?
didn't expect you to be down there in the watch party. I thought you'd be up backstage.
Oh, well, you know, just dump me down there and leave me, okay? Fuck you.
Okay, how's it going?
It's going great. How you going?
Well, I saw part of your debate with Prime and Doobie. You looked a little heated there.
Yeah, that's what we do. We scream at each other. It's blood sports.
Hold on, you're very low. Let me turn you up. Can you say something again, just to make sure you're...
Hey, how's it going? 1, 2, 3. Hello. Hi, hi, hi.
Yeah, you're still a little low. Can you turn yourself up a little bit?
No, what the fuck? If my shit is low on your end, you're fucked. Fix yourself. My volume is in the red. My volumes are perfectly fine. You go to user settings on Discord, okay? You click user
I'll
settings.
just turn up my headphone volume. How about?
Well, how many different volumes do you have? Is your volume set to 100%?
I have you on 200 on Discord.
No, on your actual Discord voice settings.
Let me look.
Like, you have to go to voice and video. You click the gear thing. You go to voice and video on output volume.
Output volume is 100%. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then turn your shit up, motherfucker.
Fair enough. Well, this ain't my rodeo here. Non-smoker's the one that invited us. Non-smoker, take it away. You're up.
Yeah, Wick, Destiny, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. So, I had approached Wick with this topic, I guess, like a week ago. It seems to be one of the hotter issues in the news lately, the entire Houthi question. Is it appropriate for us to carry out military strikes? Is it not? I'm of the position that it's not, and I guess my reasoning is a little complicated, but I think it seems to make sense to me, and I just maybe need a second to hash it out. But my position is that the U.S. has a really terrible track record in both the 20th and the 21st century, at least after the Second World War, of getting, tangled in conflicts where we purport to be trying to reduce tension, trying to preserve human life, trying to fight for humanity's sake. And what ends up happening is these various little theaters turn into a greater degree of like chaos and disarray. More people die, conditions get worse on the ground. Things just turn out to be worse than they would have had we never gotten involved. In most cases. Most recent example, the biggest one I always reference back to is the Iraq War. So with that being said, I see military strikes on a small country, and I have this reflexive, sort of urge to say this is bad. But looking over the nuance a little bit, I happen to think that the reason the Houthis are doing this and carrying out these strikes on commercial shipping vessels is an attempt to try to legitimize themselves as a regional power. And I actually think that a lot of that is based on the idea that they feel like they have this moral argument, right? We're doing this to stand up for the Palestinians, and we're trying to stop this genocide in Gaza. Whether that's a legitimate claim or not, to me, is almost irrelevant. I think it actually is incumbent upon the U.S. to try and do more than what we're doing now, which is virtually nothing, to try and broker some sort of peace arrangement between Gaza and Israel, which will take away the moral imperative, at least on behalf of the Houthis, to continue these strikes. I happen to think that as of this point, we haven't killed any civilians, but I think if we continue striking Yemen, the probability that we will kill a civilian increases every time we carry out strikes. I think that killing civilians is bad. We should do everything we can to reduce the amount of civilians that need to die in these conflicts. And I just don't want to see this conflict expand more and more and more and more and see more people die, see more American tax dollars wasted in the Middle East, killing, generations of brown babies and shit like that. So that's my basic position. Alistair, I think you have sort of a similar take, and then maybe we could go like Destiny and then Wick with like opening statements.
Yeah, I have mostly a similar take in that the Houthis are making a legitimate response to what is going on in the Gaza Strip. And this is more or less like a long trend of historical patterns that are happening with Israel continuously expanding into Palestinian territory. And so these reactions are more or less legitimate. Not necessarily perfect. I'm not going to defend that they're perfect, but they are understandable, to say the least.
Cool. Destiny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the reactions are totally not legitimate. Just because you're upset about a conflict going on in some other part of the world doesn't give you the right to attack the entire world. Shutting down massive shipping lanes that have massively negative effects on everybody is unhinged, and you deserve to have whatever launching platform or boat or infrastructure you're using to launch those attacks to be absolutely and completely obliterated by whatever country wants to do it. I think the United States, as the leader of ensuring like trade and whatnot around the world, or ensuring maritime shipping and everything, I think we absolutely have an obligation to stop this. I think the rest of the world is looking at us to stop this, and there's no moral authority on the rights of the Houthis to attack merchant ships, and there's absolutely moral authority from the United States perspective to guarantee free passage through international shipping.
But you said they had no right to intervene, so why do they not have a right to intervene when we're in...
Okay, sorry. Alistair, and not to cut you off, yeah, maybe give Wick
You can let him go. I'll get in there. I trust me. You can let him go.
Okay.
Okay.
You said they have no right to intervene, but then you're dictating that the United States should intervene with the Houthis.
Yes, that's correct.
Why's that?
Well, because the Houthis are aggressing against international shipping, and the United States is defending international shipping.
Indiscriminately?
Yeah, well, just
Doesn't matter.
today-
Even if it was discriminatory or indiscriminate, it doesn't really matter. You don't have a right to shut down incredibly important trading passages, and right now the world is viewing it as indiscriminate, so...
Well, I mean, how many ships have they attacked? They've attacked 34. There's an average of 68 ships passing through the Suez Canal daily, okay? And so over the period they've been doing these attacks over the last 70 days, 4,900 ships have passed through this canal, and only 34 have actually been seized or interacted with by the Houthis. So they're not targeting every ship.
Doesn't matter if they're
Well,
targeting
the majority
every
of
ship.
training
The
is
entirety
on.
of the world is decreasing their traffic through there. More and more people are routing their ships around South Africa, and nobody wants to take the risk of their ship being the one that's destroyed. Shipping has fallen off dramatically. You can look at the container costs that have ballooned in value for, especially Europe, is being negatively affected by this.
And just to jump in here, right? Just because they aren't able, like physically able to attack more ships, doesn't mean they wouldn't if they could, right? They are, at least it seems to me, that they are going after everything that they can get their hands on, including U.S. and UK-owned vessels. Just today, they hit a United Kingdom tanker, right? And there's fears of a massive oil spill, ecological disaster in the region, right? This idea that they are doing it with just to support the Gaza, right, is ludicrous and not bared out by the data. They are attacking Japan-owned ships, anything they can get their hands on. And sure, they aren't doing it to a level where every single ship is getting hit, but that's just because they can't, right? Not because they don't want to.
But if they're targeting indiscriminately, why is an all-Chinese crew signal being sent across as a warning sign not to attack certain ships? The Chinese ships aren't necessarily getting attacked by these things.
Bro,
this was something that was really...
The Chinese literally abstained in the Security Council from the vote when we said we were going to go and fuck the Houthis up. Chinese don't like this anyway, either. Especially because China's one trying to broker peace in the region. Nobody wants this, except for Iran.
But the fact that these ships are using all Chinese crew as a signal to avoid being targeted by the Houthis is evidence that they're not just targeting all ships. They're mostly targeting ships which are either from the United States or the United Kingdom. And the first ship that was targeted...
Even if that was the case, they wouldn't even have a right to do that.
Okay, so why does the United States have a right to intervene, but not the Houthis when it comes to the genocide going on against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip?
The Houthis have a right to intervene in the genocide against the Palestinian people if they feel that way. You don't intervene by shutting down global shipping lanes.
But they're not doing that to every ship. Less than 1% of the ships going through the Suez Canal have been targeted by the Houthis.
It doesn't matter. Traffic is decreased by 50%. Nobody wants to ship their shit through there right now because they don't know if they're going to be destroyed or not.
Yeah, I mean, my argument really is not that the Houthis have a right to stop global trade or anything like that. I think it's their claim, whether we want to argue it's legit or not, and I'm open to the idea that it's not legit, but I think their claim is based on the idea that there's this ongoing genocide in Gaza, and so they want to stop, they want to contribute in any way they can, and they feel as though, hey, we can't do anything to stop Israel's military directly. We don't have the capability to do that. But what we can do is essentially fuck up global trade to draw more attention to this conflict zone. That's their stated purpose. I happen to think part of the motivation here is to be recognized as some sort of influential power, right? They can do something that will affect the rest of the world to try and make a statement.
If
And I
their
think
goal was to support Gaza and get U.S. and UK withdrawal support to Gaza, they're going about it in the exact opposite way that will achieve their goal. Because we cannot, right? Even if we wanted to, we cannot be seen to be giving in to these attacks in order to help Gaza and things like that. Because if we do, right, if we do give in, if the Houthis get what they claim they want, and because of their blockade, we are seen as going harder on Israel and withdrawing our support from Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What will happen is the next time there is a conflict that the U.S. May even tangentially be involved in, they are going to start shooting at civilian vessels again because it worked before, and it will work again. There is a reason we do not negotiate with terrorists, and this is it. It's because if you give them what they want, if it works, then they will just do it more. And so we must use the military power that we have to make sure that, to the best of our ability, that it does not work.
So you want to go non-smoke, or do you want me to go?
No, I mean, I was just going to say that in terms of like one of their primary goals, I think, being recognized as like a power in the region, I think they've already achieved that just by drawing all of this attention from carrying out strikes. And I think that there's a high probability that if the Houthis are in power in any capacity in the Middle East at all, they might continue carrying out strikes arbitrarily or whenever they have some demand for the, foreseeable future. I just don't think that, the response to that should be like an aggressive military push to just completely remove them from power, because that'll result in destabilization. We're not even there yet. We're just carrying out small-scale strikes and all that kind of stuff. And I do understand the logic of that. I just don't think it's going to be as effective as cutting off their moral imperative.
There is no moral imperative. Just because you're unhappy with a conflict somewhere else on the earth doesn't give you the right to shut down global shipping lanes.
Stated moral imperative.
That's fine, but we're here to evaluate if we agree or disagree with that. If that was the case, then every country around the world would be constantly...
don't even agree with that.
Okay, well, every country around the world would be constantly shooting into the oceans if they thought that like some conflict in some other place of the world was not going in a way they agreed with. That's insane. You don't have a right to shut down shipping.
I'm totally open to the idea that that's all bullshit, right?
Oh, okay.
But my argument here is that I think we're all in agreement we would like to see an end to the conflict in Gaza, right? Correct?
I hope so, yeah.
That conflict has nothing to do with this one, though.
I think there is a connection.
That's what the stated...
It's
it doesn't matter. They're entirely separate conflicts. I don't care if they say it, right? I can go down to my police station and start punching cops and say, well, I'm going to do this until the conflict is resolved in Israel. That doesn't mean that they're connected just because I say they are. That's not how it works.
What connection of punching a cop would you have to a genocide going on the Gaza Strip? Like, the Houthis have directly said that this is their response to something going on in the Gaza Strip.
And I could say that it's my response to the violence in the Gaza Strip that I'm going to punch cops.
Yeah, but we already established that they aren't indiscriminately targeting ships.
They are indiscriminately targeting ships right now.
The numbers don't add up. It's less than 1% of the ships going through the Suez Canal have been affected by the Houthis.
I don't know why you keep saying less than 1%. If I go to an interstate highway and I start sniping 1% of drivers, everybody's going to exit. I don't know why you keep fixating on that number. Traffic has fallen.
I don't disagree with you on that one.
Okay, traffic has fallen severely. I think it's almost cut by 50%.
And that's perfectly fine, but that doesn't prove that they're doing it indiscriminately.
It proves that the rest of the world thinks they are.
Okay, that's perfectly fine.
That's not fine. You're shutting down global shipping. You're having a chilling effect. You're going to get your fucking ass pushed in. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Your disagreement here is between perception and actuality.
I shouldn't, but even if I grant you all of that they're only attacking U.S. or Israeli ships, they don't even have the right to do that. They have no moral right to do that either.
No, I'm open to the idea, once again, that they have no moral right to do any of this. What I'm suggesting is, part of this, I think, is political. Most of it is political for the Houthis. They look at it as like, hey, we have a justifiable reason to carry out these attacks that will make us look like a legitimate regional power. So if we can do something to take away that moral argument, it might actually hurt them in the optics area. And I'm open to the idea that if we can help resolve or do more, in my view, to resolve the crisis in Gaza, and the Houthis continue to carry out attacks on ships, I'm actually okay with responding with strikes.
No, there's no connection between these two conflicts. They're not
I mean,
connected at all.
they've stated that
They've
there's a direct.
It
yeah,
doesn't
they stated
matter that they
publicly. How
state it.
are you denying this fact? Like this,
Because
like
they're not-
Assad
you can
Tiger
look
talked
at
to a Houthi pirate about this before. Like they've already stated this multiple times publicly.
It doesn't matter.
using
They're
it as
not
their- but
connected.
it
We can
matters
use our
'cause
eyes
they're-
and our brains. The countries don't border each other. They don't share governments. They don't share economies. They don't share funding sources. They don't share like anything with each other. Why?
It matters.
So,
It
so,
matters.
so if it's disconnected from me, I can't involve myself and say this genocide is wrong. Is because I don't presently live there. I can't
If I
morally say
think-
that's
Hold on.
bad.
No, wait. Hold on. What? The who?
I
Everybody
mean, you
around the
said
wo-
they're completely disconnected.
No,
Is that
hold
not
on.
your argument?
No. You just said if you don't live there, you can't say the genocide is wrong. No. What I
Yeah.
said is because you don't live there, you can't start attacking ships in trading lanes. There's a big difference between shooting missiles at civilian ships and saying that something is wrong. If they want to say something is wrong, they have
Sure.
every right to do that.
Sure,
San
but we're talking
Francisco
about a
declared
distinction
that
between
they wanted a
perception and
ceasefire.
actuality.
They're not bordering it. They condemned the Gaza and what's happening in Gaza, but Biden isn't bombing them now. What's the difference between these two groups, right? Both are condemning, right, what's happening in Gaza. Both oppose it. One is engaged in terrorist attacks against civilian targets. And one
So
is
that's the you've argued that it was just the perception of indiscriminate attacks. You've already agreed that it is not, in objective reality, indiscriminate attacks. You mostly made your arguments based on the perception, not the
Hold on.
actuality, is because the numbers don't line up on the total number of ships that's going through the Suez Canal.
Wait, why do you keep saying? Hold on. Do you recognize that traffic has dramatically fallen?
Oh, I do recognize
Okay.
that.
Do you recognize that shipping costs are exploding for Europe?
Yes.
And do you recognize that thus far, there's not good evidence to suggest that the Houthis are only targeting Israeli or American vessels?
You haven't proven that.
Okay, what would you need me to provide you to prove that?
I don't know. You know, the Galaxy Leader, the first ship that they went after, was basically the company, I think it was Ray Cars, was established by one of the wealthiest businessmen in Israel. It's not being indiscriminate. That's my point the entire time. You can argue whether or not these have been
So
effective.
now they can target any ship that had an investor that was Israeli?
Who's one of the wealthiest men in Israel? Is
Okay,
that
so,
not an
so now we
important
can
figure with
so
Israel?
what about a really wealthy Jew from the United States? Can we target his vessels?
Why would they attack him?
No, his shipping vessels that he invests in.
Okay, if he's a Jew from the United States, or is he tied to the Israeli state? That might be why they'd be targeting him.
Is this guy funding the IDF?
He just happens to be a very wealthy businessman and Israel.
Okay, what about today, when literally like hours ago, a massive Russian tanker was attacked by the Houthis? This happened hours ago. Do we think that is there a Jewish connection to that?
It's not a Jewish connection. We're more or less talking about Zionists and relations to the Israel state, which
Is
is
there
what
a
they've been
Zionist
talking about the
connection to
entire
that?
time. I'm not sure. I don't know about that instance.
Okay,
Yemen's
so-
Houthi rebels claimed the strike on the Marlene Luanda. The vessel is carrying Russian-origin naphtha, a product used to make plastics and gasoline, purchasable at the price cap, blah, blah, blah. This literally happened hours ago. Carried fuel from Russia, will likely concern Moscow. Vast amounts of Russian petroleum now passes the southern Red Sea to reach Asian buyers.
Recent Houthi attack on commercial ships.
There's Japanese vessels as well. There's other vessels. Like there are vessels that have zero connection, right? Just because they.
Which
did
one's the
one
Japanese
Galaxy
vessel?
Leader.
Which one's the Japanese
let me
vessel?
get the fucking-
Because you're probably thinking of the Galaxy Leader, which is British owned and then operated by a Japanese crew.
And you think that they had justification to attack that one?
No,
Because
I'm
the
not
shipping
more.
company and Ray
Again,
shipping
my
is
goal
owned-
here is not to perfectly justify everything the Houthis are doing, but more or less assert that they're reacting to a crisis in Gaza. That's been my point the
But
entire
you can't,
time.
But you can't. But then why can't I go punch cops in reaction to Gaza?
We're not saying
Okay,
it's
how would that
okay to
help?
do that. We're
How
saying
would that
that's the
stop the
rationale.
genocide in Gaza?
How
Like,
is this
would
stopping
that...
the genocide in
Wait.
Gaza?
Hold on.
Because
The
they're
punching
discriminately
cops thing- punching cops thing is a good example because people do use that as a justification to attack cops. It doesn't mean it's okay to attack the cops. But if we could do more to stop, for example, police brutality, maybe that would result in less attacks on cops.
I don't think the reason why I'm not saying that people do this. I'm comparing it to something that you have a shitty justification for. Do you think that it's
so
okay to
I
attack
know
a cop
you-
because
no,
some cops
we're
are?
aware you don't like the justification. What I'm saying is the justification exists, right? They're using it as a justification. Maybe if you remove the justification,
My
or
spouse
remove the fact, or
didn't have
reduce the
dinner
ability for it
on
to
the
continue to
table
happen.
when I got home, right? This led to me beating the crap out of her. That is an excuse. It doesn't
Well,
stop.
he's saying that we're just like attack. Well, but then what are we here to discuss if not like if we agree or disagree with the justification? I think we all know the justification the Houthis are using. I thought we were fighting against the justification.
I'm saying the best way through trying to stop this, right? We all agree that it's bad, right? We don't want attacks on commercial shipping vessels. I think the best way to stop this is through diplomacy in Gaza.
No. Why would you allow another party?
Yes.
Why would you allow somebody that's not party to a conflict to dictate the resolution of that conflict?
So Destiny, I got a question for you. Like, why do you think these people are attacking ships? Then, like, is it just random acts of terrorism?
No, it's because destabilization of the region favors actors like Iran and Hezbollah.
And it's just right around the same time the Palestinian-Israel conflict really picked up at the same time?
No, it's because you ride off the backs of that destabilization. I'm sorry, do you think Iran has only been targeting ships? And do you think the Houthis have only been targeting ships right now? You don't think this hasn't been happening since 2014, since the entire region has been collapsed and taken over by the Houthis?
How many ships have been targeted prior?
I don't know the number of ships that are targeted prior. I can't give you the exact number of that. But I'm sure the attacks have ramped up right now because there's another conflict going that you want to capitalize on. But that doesn't mean that they're tied in such a way that like the Houthis have a legitimate claim to being able to try to stifle the conflict in Gaza.
So the Houthis have openly said they're doing it in response to Gaza, okay? And it looks like a duck. Lying. It sounds like a duck.
They're not telling the
They're
truth.
lying. Okay, they're lying. Okay.
Yes, they can say all they want, right? What they're doing and the reasons they're doing it, but we don't have to believe them. We can look at what their actions are, right? It's words versus deeds. If someone says that they're a good person, but everything they do belies that notion, you don't believe them. You say,
but what have their actions been?
Lying. Their actions are attacking ships that have nothing to do with the Israel and Gaza conflict right now. And even if a wealthy Israeli owner owned a ship, that does not mean that there is a connection between the current conflict in Gaza and the ship being attacked.
You could argue about how effective they are in enforcing a so-called sanction about shipments going to Israel, and I might agree with you on that. I might not even agree with like some of the people that have in their ranks. But the thing is the numbers don't fucking add up. Less than 34 ships have been attacked since mid-November all the way till now, and 4,900 ships approximately passed through the Suez Canal. And you can't tell me that they're just doing this instantly just because they like to kill babies
because they
or some
don't
stupid
have
shit.
because they don't have the means to attack every single ship. They don't have that many munitions. The real question is how many of the shipments they were attacking, how many of those were destined for Israel? That's the real question. Of the ships they did attack.
No, yeah, I could agree with you on that one. Maybe they were mistargeting some ships, which is why I said like I could probably agree with you on how effective they were doing it. But if it looks like if you talk about looking at their actions, you talked about their actions, right? Their actions have been in correlation to the same time period the Israel-Palestine conflict has been going on.
Yes, they want to capitalize on that conflict. I'm not saying that like the conflict is unrelated to their is completely unrelated to like their motivations in terms of why they're doing what they're doing right now. But I'm saying that that conflict is not necessarily connected to the Houthis in such a way that they're participating in a meaningful way in that conflict. They're just taking advantage of it. The same way that a person might beat up a Jewish person or a Muslim in the United States. Say, oh well, I'm doing this because of what's happening in Gaza. Yeah, the motivations can be there, but that's the only connection. They're not actually connected like they have like an actual, I don't know, existential interest or an interest in their country for it. They're just doing it because they're riding off the conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree when you said that destabilization in a region creates opportunities for like non-state actors, these various groups that, you know, to take power, to make big, you know, gestures to try to assert control or assert themselves as legitimate. But wouldn't you agree, or maybe you wouldn't, I don't know, that like a lot of what's driving the destabilization in the region is the conflict in Gaza? Like if we could somehow help resolve that, it would reduce the destabilization by quite a bit.
Do you think like maybe raiding back Israel or maybe the strength from above kind of mentality has probably done more harm than good for the region and basically inciting Arab nationalism?
No.
Okay, so if you want to go all the way back to the British Mandate of Palestine, you know, when the Ottoman Empire still existed, you know, they seem pretty tame is because they actually had a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire. So if we looked at now, right, and because this is your main argument, Destiny, is that most of the people who are Palestinians, or maybe even like Hezbollah, are religious fundamentalist extremists. Would you say that's a little bit different than, say, under the Ottoman Empire or when the British Mandate of Palestine first came about, where they were probably a little bit more tolerant to a multi-ethnic and multi-religious region?
I don't think I ever said it was necessarily an ethnic or a religious conflict. I think it is a regional conflict right now that had to do with European settlers basically coming over, and they fought for that reason, but I don't know how any of that is tied into any of this now.
I mean, you went on a couple of streams previously and said that they were Islamic fundamentalists.
I've said a billion times that religion is not the driving factor between why people don't like Israel in the Middle East. If religion was the driving factor, then the Arabs would have united and kicked them out a long time ago. It was thinly veiled desires for pan-Arabism. It was different competing nationalistic interests. That's why at the same time the Six-Day War was going on, Saudi Arabia and Egypt were fighting on the same side as Egypt and fighting different sides during the Yemen Civil War. So I mean, like, but
my point is like, do you think like this strength from above kind of mentality of just bomb these people is not at least incited a little bit more Arab nationalism in comparison over the last, like, say 100 years, like maybe 100 years ago?
I think if anything, it's probably chill the Arab nationalism out. They realize it's not achievable. They stopped trying, and now they're chilled. People like Nasser are gone. People like Saddam Hussein are gone. Yeah, people are just like
the normalization between Egypt and Israel is a good example of this. Israel kicked their shit in, and they stopped fighting, right? So again, like this idea that people will simply be radicalized if you bomb them, I don't think it necessarily pans out. I think that you're putting the cart before the horse in a lot of times. I guess my question to both of you would be, you don't like that Biden's striking the Houthis for correct? You think that's wrong?
I think it's yeah. Go ahead.
Wrong, ineffective,
it's
whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think it's not a very effective.
Okay, so what would you have him do? Because what it seems to be like you guys are asking us to do is just let them continue to hit civilian ships. You're asking us to be Uvalde cops, waiting till the shooter tires and tuckers himself out, and then you can go in and negotiate with him. I reject that notion entirely. If you are actively targeting civilian ships, it doesn't matter your reason why. We should take you out and take your ability to continue to do so out. And that is what America and UK both are doing right now. They're targeting radar sites. They're targeting missile silos. They haven't killed, to this day, a single civilian. Again, if someone is actively shooting at civilians, you stop them. Period.
Yeah, but does that... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say two things. One, I mean, the strikes on commercial shipping vessels haven't stopped. I'm not saying that, you know, they haven't been reduced or whatever, their capabilities haven't been reduced, but the strikes haven't stopped. You know, if anything, this is showing that the Houthis are sort of willing to engage in a tit-for-tat sort of exchange here, one. And then two, I mean, in terms of options, I really do think that all of this, the origin point is in Gaza. I know you guys disagree with me, but I tend to believe that this sort of initiated a sequence of events. This is one of them, right? The same as Hezbollah attacking, you know, Israel. I think that if we did more to try and rein in Israel, that for sure it would reduce at least some of the justification here. I don't think that there's a magical solution, of course. That's ridiculous. But I think, you know, the position we have now where we're doing really almost nothing to speak out against Israel's actions, at least the Biden administration isn't, and they've been criticized a lot by their own State Department for that, or there's rumblings within the State Department about that. I think there needs to be like a concerted effort on our part to try and do something to resolve that conflict. And then in terms of the Houthis directly, I mean, I'm open even to like having talks of lifting sanctions entirely. And then if they're not willing to play this game of like good faith with us, then yeah, carry out all the strikes you want.
But we,
you know,
if we did,
well, and
did
also
remove them from the terrorist watch list. So one of the first things Biden did in his foreign policy was remove the Houthis from the terrorist designation like that they have, right? And he did this in order to try to negotiate, to try to, okay, can we do a peaceful, a talky resolution? Obviously, this has not worked.
What year did he take him off the special terrorist designation? Okay, so that was like over 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Circumstances on the ground have changed. I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
also, Israel is trying to resolve Israel is in the process of resolving the conflict right now by killing all of Hamas.
Yeah, I don't
and
know
how's
if
that
that's going to be
responding throughout the Arab
effective
world?
either.
How's it going?
You
Well,
know,
so far, most of the Arab leaders still support Israel because most of them fucking hate Hamas, so it seems to be going okay so far.
Yeah, look, I think Israel killing tens of thousands of people, many of whom are civilians, is just going to radicalize the Gazans more.
The Gazans are already radicalized.
I mean, you've gone on like 4 different streams, Destiny, complaining about this kind of extremism, Arab extremism, and you don't think that's like at least slightly contributing to it?
Well,
like
I have no idea what you think any of my positions are. They sound completely strong. Arab extremism? I don't know if
Islamic
I don't think the
extremism.
I don't think the Arab states all function as like Arab extremists right now, and I don't think that Islamic extremism is a big driving force for any geopolitical issue right now. I think almost all of it is geopolitical in nature, in terms of like states, borders, and the people that they support and fight with.
Destiny, I swear to God, I'm not asking this in like a super triggered way. I'm just legitimately curious. Like, do you have any criticisms for Israel's conduct in Gaza in terms of like how they're carrying out this campaign?
It's hard without having insight into their military. Obviously, some of the stuff that we've seen, like shooting people that are waving white flags or shooting people that appear to be surrendering, that seems to be bad. But holistically, it seems like they're conducting the operation about as well as I'd expect them to. But it's hard because there aren't very many comparable situations for like urban warfare that's this intense. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the planet, so it's hard to draw comparisons. But given, if you believe their reports, that about 1/3 of the people killed so far have been Hamas fighters, you get like a 1 to 3, 1 to 4 civilian death ratio here for highly urbanized combat. It seems to be going okay so far, if you believe their numbers of how many are Hamas fighters.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, I have the same view with anyone's reported numbers. I have no fucking idea. Like, it's possible that's true. But I guess my view is, like, a lot of the optics here are fucking really bad. You know, I mean, the amount of innocent people dying is, like, you know, I would say, like, enormous is a word that comes to mind. Like, it feels a little bit like collective punishment. Like, even just the amount of infrastructure being destroyed alone and the impact that'll have on the people living there. And
they cut off water, electricity, food, and a lot of shipments into the Gaza Strip. Is that also not true?
They have limited those going in before, yeah, because organizations like Hamas literally, and the Houthis too, literally co-opt these things to fund their terrorist activities. Yeah, it's been an issue.
Okay, so like food and electricity, like how would that exactly get co-opted into, like, I don't know, nuclear or like weapons or something like that?
Well, electricity gets co-opted because it's used to manufacture things that they probably shouldn't be to continue their fight with Israel, and food gets co-opted because instead of going to the populations that need it most, it ends up just going to Hamas fighters.
So what the thing is that, like, what kind of materials outside of just basic electricity, what kind of production would you say was going into the development of weapons that the Hamas is using?
I mean, all of the rockets that they send, it initially was custom rockets, but I believe they've got more sophisticated things now. The cash that they spend on shipping in weapons covertly from either Iran or Turkey. I don't know. I don't know the extent of.
So can't you just like sanction like rocket fuels instead of electricity, food, and water?
I don't think there's a special fuel called rocket fuel. Unfortunately, a lot of the same fossil fuels run a lot of the same things.
Spot on the truckload. You know, it's kind of hard to sneak in like, you know, ammo and weapons through like electricity lines.
Well, humans are creatures of high ingenuity, so believe it or not, they can repurpose other things. Like when Hamas takes up water pipes from old factories and uses them to fire rockets, you can actually use things for multi-purpose. You know, believe it or not.
But the materials that actually you'd have to smuggle into there is not going to be coming through your fucking power outlet.
Right. Yeah, I guess my view has always sort of been, I mean, I don't think there's a way to perfectly root out Hamas. And the reality of the situation Israel is in is that they want to get rid of this organization that is in Gaza. It's embedded in Gaza, and it's going to be impossible to root them out entirely. So your options are sort of what? I mean, kill everybody there, you know, like, I don't know, like, try to excommunicate everyone from the region. I don't know where you go, and I guess, like, Destiny and Wick, both of you guys.
So why wouldn't you just, like, stop shipment? Oh, go ahead.
Support I think both of you support a two-state solution, right?
Yeah, the Palestinians don't. So.
Right, but that's my point. Like, how can you support a two-state solution if you feel like the Palestinians are totally against it? I mean, doesn't that mean it's impossible?
Well, yeah, it's impossible as long as Hamas has any kind of authority in the region, right? As long as Hamas exists, there will never be a two-state solution. So if you support a two-state solution, Hamas just has to cease to exist.
Yeah,
and no, we don't need, like, look, I want to clarify this. I want to be very clear here. I don't need Hamas to literally every single Hamas member to be dead for this to happen. What we need to do is simply degrade their ability to make attacks against Israeli civilians as well as Palestinian civilians, because let's not forget that one of the victims of Hamas are the Palestinians. They kill, capture, and torture their own citizens, right? Let's not forget that. But as long as they have any authority in the region, right, this is going to be a perpetual problem. Again, that's why any kind of call for ceasefire or anything like that is just kicking the can down the road. Hamas needs to be dealt with, or there will be no.
So you want to go into like these lands, like the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, to basically bring it under the annexation of Israel. Like, how did that work out last time exactly? I mean, you took their land, but did that really reduce the extremism? Over the last 70 years?
Yes.
Really? Okay, so those rockets coming from like the Gaza Strip are evidence of that.
Well, no. I would say that in 1979, when Egypt signed a peace treaty, the first bilateral peace treaty ever with Israel, it was because they had taken the Gaza Strip from the Sinai Peninsula. I would say that in 94, after the 91 Madrid Peace Conference, when Israel signed bilateral peace with Jordan, it was because they had captured territory and were a threat to them as well. So, and then I would say that when other Arab states have started to respect Israel because of their military prowess, I would say that's evidence of that as well. So it seems like capturing land from opponents who start to respect your military strength and realize they can't beat you in a war does seem to be a pretty effective way of resolving.
Well, yeah, it's because they're being funded by the British and the Americans. So
they're being funded by the who's being funded by the British?
or
and the
they're
Americans?
getting most of their weapons from the Anglosphere.
Not initially. In '48, they got all their weapons legally shipped in from Czechoslovakia. And they weren't, up until '66, the United States didn't ship them a single weapon. It was exclusively other British territories, and they weren't, or other European countries, but it wasn't even shipped like help. They were being purchased from them. So no, Israel didn't have anywhere near the help that Egypt and all the other countries are getting from the USSR and all the other surrounding Arab states. Unfortunately, they were too busy fighting themselves than focusing on Israel, so they weren't very successful in their military effect.
Yeah, I feel like you guys went in a totally different direction. I actually just wanted to go back to that question about the two-state solution. So, okay, like, Destiny, if the Palestinians, in your view, a majority of them, and I'm sure you have, like, research to, you know, verify this, a vast majority of them don't want a two-state solution, but you think ultimately that's the solution here, or that's the preferred solution here, you know, is there a way to even achieve that? Are you saying that that's best case scenario, but what we're going to have to end up with is the territorial divide being what it is, and the Palestinians living under these like horrible conditions, and that's just.
I think there has to be a huge international push for peace from the Palestinian side, and until that happens, I think that Israel's going to continue to be expansionist. They're going to continue to take more territory, probably start annexing parts of the West Bank, and yeah. Right now, I think dynamically, I think both sides kind of want conflict, but it only benefits Israel and it's hurting the Palestinians, and nobody around the world seems to be acknowledging the Palestinian side of that. They just keep screaming for peace without having any understanding of what's actually going on in the region or what people want.
I mean, I don't know about the Palestinian people, but I agree that Hamas absolutely wants conflict. Conflict helps their bottom line because they can show just shitloads of footage and you know, images of dead kids and dead civilians over and over and over again on social media, thus, you know, making their cause more sympathetic. So I think violence, if anything, it actually helps Hamas more, right? Like, it'll sort of, you know, compound the support that already exists. It might increase support from other countries and other non-state actors.
The answer can't be that, like, terrorism works, so we should let terrorism work. Right? Like, just
no,
because,
I
I understand what you're saying, that, like, yeah, they want
Sure.
civilian deaths because it helps them, therefore we should just never attack them. That legitimizes and makes human shields and all that thing, like, the best way to conduct warfare.
No. I'm not, like, such a peacenik that I'm saying all terrorism must be permitted then, of course. I guess what I'm saying is, like, there feels like, and it's always felt this way in this region, I mean, as long as I've, you know, read about it and learned about it and studied it, that there's this sort of notion that, well, diplomacy can just never be achieved. And I don't know if I believe that. I believe there is a diplomatic solution somewhere here. It just so happens to be that the current government in Israel and Hamas are both complicit in, you know, erring on the side of violence. And yeah, it's difficult for both of them to come together and negotiate peace because of that. But I think an international push from the outside, with America as an arbiter, would be, you know, I think meaningful. It might actually drive them towards peace.
If I may, let me put a pin in that, right? Because I think you're touching on something that I think is kind of goes against what you're driving at, right? We have tried, Israel and Palestine have tried, and the United States has tried to work with them. Other international actors have tried to work with them for peace for many, many years. There's been several times. Also, of course, right, we can look at the Clinton camp or whatever, what he did. Again, every time this happens, though, the extremists decide to blow shit up and get it and derail it and turn this into like this chaos thing. So
why do they do it?
Well, at a certain point, these extremists that are blowing shit up every time we try to talk peace need to be blown up themselves.
Why
We
are
need
they
to
blowing things up?
eliminate them as much as we possibly can from the table, so they stop fucking with us when we're trying to bring actual peace to this region.
Okay.
Hamas needs to go.
Okay, so what would you say is the cause of this extremism? What's the driving force with this extremism that you keep talking about? I want to know. I want to understand, like, what your perspective is, because obviously I was
Does it
strong on
matter
your...
why?
So they're just blowing up people for no reason?
The driving force for the Palestinians, because they feel like the Jewish people that exist right now in Israel don't belong there. That they shouldn't have come 80 years ago and they need to be expelled.
Yeah.
Is that the case for
And
the
a lot
Houthis
of,
as well?
A lot of Western motherfuckers staying on
Houthis,
their
the
couches are cheering them on.
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, is that
Israel
the case for the
should be
Houthis?
destroyed. Go fight them,
Is-
Palestinians.
is one
and they
thing-
have no risk to themselves, and they're just getting Palestinians killed.
Yeah, no. Is that the same reason for the Houthis as well, Destiny?
For the Houthis doing what?
Is it driving out the Jewish people out of Israel? Like the driving
What are you
motive on
asking?
why they're
Houthis-
committing this
the
extreme?
Houthis shooting shit
Yes.
into the straits is the least important thing about the Houthis. That's what we're talking about now. But what do you mean when you say, is that the reason for
Well,
the Houthis?
I'm asking, like, what's the general reason why they're extremists, right? You know, you said I was strawmanning.
I don't
you
even
when
know
you
if the
said it was
Houthis
real.
are extremists. That whole region of Yemen has been fucked for a long time.
Okay,
That family,
you said they're blowing up shit. So what's the driving force? Like, what's the driving force?
the driving force right now for why they blow up
Yeah.
ships.
Like what? Yeah. You said for the Palestinians, it's because they want to expel Jews from Israel, right? Or
I
like
mean,
what Wick said. Maybe not you.
I think that increasingly over the past like 5 to 6 years, I think that Hezbollah and Iran are having increasingly large effects on how the Houthis conduct themselves, both domestically and internationally. And I think it benefits Iran to have a proxy group shooting missiles into fucking boats into the trading lanes, because it kind of pressures the whole world to come down on Israel more, because Iran knows that Hamas is resistant to international pressure because they don't care. So I think that's probably the goal. If I had to guess, is Iran's goal is generally destabilization in the region, because it just benefits them.
And
What-
to piggyback off that, just real quick, Iran has conducted strikes against the Kurds in Iraq and in other locations as well. Like this escalation that is happening, Iran, the actions they are taking, seem to suggest that they want this to escalate. That they think, whether they're wrong
So
or
what's-
right, they feel it benefits them if the region.
So
is
what's
further
Iran's
escalated.
motivation? So what's Iran's motivation?
Iran opposes essentially what they perceive as the American-Saudi hegemony in the region, and they want to stand in opposition to that.
Okay, what's the relation with Israel?
What's Iran's relationship with Israel?
Yeah.
I mean, they probably see them as essentially like a U.S.-backed state that they can fuck with through
Okay.
Hezbollah and
Settler colonial, so similar to the Palestinians. Okay, and they're backing the Houthis, right?
Iran is, yeah.
Okay. So do you think that might actually, since they might have aligned causes, that might actually be what they're trying to do? Or is it just, once again, for like some vague geopolitical interest?
Since they have aligned causes, that's what they want to do. Wait, what are you asking?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to ask you, because you said the Palestinians wanted to drive the Jews out of Israel, right?
Yes.
That was their motivation, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you already said that with Israel, or not Israel, Iran is a similar instance,
I
right?
don't think Iran cares that much. No, I think that Iran's goal is opposition to what they perceive as a Saudi-U.S. hegemony, and Israel is a part of that. But I don't think Persian or Iran, even the
Okay,
Ayatollah,
sure.
I think give a fuck about Israel. Really.
Okay.
Other than Israel and them hate each other, yeah.
Fair.
The Houthis have been fighting regional wars in Yemen. They came down from the mountains in the fucking 90s, 2000s. Like,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
been fighting along with everybody else there. The Houthis are like, that's a regional conflict. But the people that are fighting against the Houthis are also backed by a Saudi-led coalition that involves the United States.
Yes.
So that's probably why they don't like them, right? And they side with Iran and
Yeah.
Hezbollah, right? So, yeah.
So there's a broad, like, geopolitical region. Okay.
What are you getting at? Let's circumvent this. Let's get to the point.
Yeah, okay,
What
we
are you-
can-
what are you-
okay,
what are you
okay.
aiming
Feels like
Well,
it's
the
just
thing
trying
is,
to
is,
ask
like-
a question that I don't know the
Yeah,
answer to,
yeah,
and once
it's
I don't
going
know the
against
answer,
the
it's going to
lines
try
of
to
the
fill in
United
the gaps
States.
there. Like,
The United States, Great Britain, and Israel. Okay, so it is essentially going back to Israel, essentially.
what do you mean going back to Israel?
Well, that's okay. It's their stated goal. We've already agreed on that. Okay, and on top of that, they're more or less working with the Palestinians because they would have. You said get rid of the Jews from Israel, right? Would you agree with that? That's what you said.
Who is working with the Palestinians?
The Houthis have basically said that they're doing that. Like,
I don't think the
like,
Houthis
where-
care. I don't
where's
think the Houthis care about like Israel or the Palestinians. I think they care about Yemen. That's like their big thing.
Okay.
Do you disagree with that?
Iran funds them, right? Like so.
Well, or maybe. As of
Pretty
recently, they've gotten more involved. I think the Houthis are largely self-successful, or at least they were prior to 5 or 6 years ago. But what is the point? Do you disagree with any of this, or why not just like make your point instead of doing 20
Well,
questions?
no,
until-
I'm just trying to understand, like, why is it such an atomized thing at the beginning of the conversation with the Houthis and the Palestinians, right? We were talking about earlier, what's the driving force between this extremism, right? Which you keep talking about, over this entire conversation. So I'm just
Well,
trying
what
to
extremism? When you say extremism, that's a very vague term.
Well, okay, you said the extremism of Hamas when it came to Israel, and they're
Yes.
also talking at the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about the Houthis and their quote-unquote indiscriminate attacks on different shipping vessels.
Okay, correct, yes.
Right?
But I don't think
Okay,
like
so-
Houthis are extreme for Yemen. That whole, even the Saudi-led coalition is like fucking raping and torturing women and children
everyone
and shit.
there is
Like,
is
yeah,
a
Yemen
lot
is
of it.
fucked. So I don't think that I wouldn't call the Houthis like extremists. Like they're all they're all pretty extreme in Yemen.
I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, that's like That's what you said, yeah. But okay.
Okay, cool. I guess we all agree on everything then. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
I guess we
at
have an
least-
agreement on that one. That's the first agreement. Okay, I'll take that.
Well, I guess for me at least, right? To kind of bring it back to the topic at hand, to bring it back to the strikes against the Houthis and the Houthis in general, things like that. America has to be able to, or the NATO, right? Someone has to defend against piracy, and that's what this is at the end of the day.
Yes.
Regardless of why they're doing it, they are engaged in piracy. They are attacking civilian vessels from a wide variety of countries, including Singapore, Panama, Gabon, Norway, Hong Kong, Bahamas, Marshall Islands, Cayman Islands, Liberia, the U.S., UK, France, Russia, all these people, right? And they are doing it seemingly indiscriminately, and someone has to make them stop. Diplomacy will not work. We've tried diplomacy before with the Houthis. It has not worked, right? Some people just need to be killed.
Well, I'm going to say this. Oh, you want to go?
Jesus.
Yeah, I've been quiet for a little while. I
All
feel like the strikes thus far haven't really worked either.
Wait, why
know,
do we
I
think
mean,
that?
to be
It's only
fair.
been a few weeks, and we have degraded we have been crushing their radar sites, right? The radar sites, if we can blind them, if we can take out their radar sites, they can shoot all the missiles they want. Their accuracy is going to be so impeded that, sure,
Or even-
it may still be a
What
threat,
is like
but it will
simply
no longer be a
when we say the attacks aren't working, are they blowing up missile and radar sites?
As far as I know, yes.
So how are they not working?
Well, what I mean is the Houthis are still attacking trading vessels.
Sure,
Or
but just
attempting
because you
to.
haven't like achieved 100% mission success and all of their capabilities are straight doesn't mean it's not working, right? They could be attacking more, but I assume we're blowing stuff up that needs to be blown up, so it's working. It just takes some time. You don't blow all of
according
it
to
up.
the
And
DOJ, we've degraded 30% 30% of their missile capacity has been degraded or destroyed. So
Like, so
as of the
to
23rd.
I guess, my view is sort of like, I'm against civilians dying. So if 30% of their capacity has been removed from the current strikes, which have killed no civilians, I happen to think that if we want to reach 100%, it's going to be very difficult to do that without killing some innocent people, right? That's just my view.
Okay.
So I tend to think that it would be good if we could avoid that, right?
Why
And
is that our
maybe there's a-
responsibility? I don't understand this obsession with no civilian casualties when there is a side of conflict that is using civilians as human shields. The responsibility, the moral imperative is on them. All we can do is calculate the collateral and hope that not too many die. But the moral imperative is not on us when it's their citizens and their governments that are using human shields to attack other uninvolved parties. That's not our moral responsibility.
So if you don't care about human life, why do you think we should intervene in the first place? Like,
When did I say I don't care
why
about
not just be
human
fully
life?
isolationist?
When
If you
did I
don't really
say I
care
don't care about
life.
human life? I never said that. I just said that we don't have an obligation to make sure civilian casualties are zero. Our only obligation is to make sure we limit them as far as collateral is concerned, but our obligation is not to keep them at zero. Our obligation is to ensure global shipping is free.
So couldn't diplomacy be an attempt through which you would reduce casualties, right?
You don't
Civilian
you don't
casualties?
initiate diplomacy with people that just start terrorist attacks. That's not how that works.
I mean, I guess it's not necessarily always how it has to work, but it doesn't mean it can't possibly be achieved either.
It shouldn't work. We don't want that. We don't want that to be the way of the world. That if you
think
start
that,
terrorist attacking people, you
unfortunately-
get concessions.
Yeah, but you have terrorist groups regardless. With the way of the world it is now, where you respond
Would there
to...
be more or less terrorism if terrorism worked better?
I think
There
there's
looks
more
like
terrorism
there's a
100
shitload of
years
terrorism
now
right
as opposed to 100 years back with the Ottoman Empire, when they were a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire. So if you want to look at it over the longer and broader period, historical period, yeah, I would say the terrorism has gone up ever since we started getting involved in the Middle East, and we also had Israel coming into the picture as well.
I'm pretty sure that's just not true at all.
I have no idea how much terrorism there was.
There's
in the
probably
Ottoman Empire in
increases and
1900s.
decreases depending on what particularly is going on in the region. I'm sure since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, but even the Ottoman Empire had pogroms against Jews, genocides that occurred within its borders, periods of expansion and contraction. Like, it's not like the Ottoman Empire was the most... I mean, it lasted for a long
Sure.
time, and it had a general sense of stability,
Yeah, but for a significant part of its history, it was tolerant.
It was
towards
very
terrorism.
tolerant under the jizya system, which other people, like Christians or Jews, could exist within the Ottoman Empire, but just pay a special tax. Is that the case nowadays? Would you say that's a thing? Or, I mean, that's your main concern about the Palestinians taking over, is driving the Jews out or just, getting rid of them. I would say
know what
that's
the
an increase
question
in
is.
extremism. Well, we're talking about whether or not extremism has gone up or down over the broad history of the last 100 years since the collapse of the
Well,
Ottoman
we
Empire.
can look at
I'm saying yes, it
wars.
has.
We could look at how many, if wars itself have gone up and down, and obviously it's gone down. global conflict, national conflicts between nations.
We're talking about
in
terrorism.
the last 100 years has gone down. Well, terrorism in itself, right? Like,
I mean, if you look at terrorism across all of Europe, like, if you look at, like, the IRA bombing shit in Germany, if you look at the shit that was going, or not in Germany, I'm sorry, in Ireland, if you look at, like, fucking Serbia and everyone else, if you look at the collapse of Yugoslavia and all of that, like, I feel like there was a ton
How's that
of...
a dispute to my point, though? How is that a dispute to my point?
Because there was a ton of regional conflict within Europe that was fucking horrible and atrocious. And I feel like for the large part, I think most of that has generally gone now. What exists today in terms of like huge sectarian violence inside of Europe, even in Eastern Europe and the Balkans today, compared to, you know, in the 90s or,
Yeah, but this is Europe. We're mostly talking about, we're talking about in the Arab world. We're not talking about Europe.
Okay, we're talking about in the Arab world. Okay, well, I don't know. Fuck it. Let's go state by state. Do you think Egypt is more stable today, or do you think Egypt was more stable and less terroristic under Nasser? And
I don't know. Were they doing like a war on terror like 100 years ago?
So, wait, are we talking about...
Yeah, we're talking about whether or not terrorism has on average gone up because of the policies of America and the British Empire.
What are we counting as terrorism? Are we counting countries as terrorism or no? Like when the
Oh,
United
we're
States
talking
tries
about-
to coup somebody, is that a terrorist
We were
activity or
talking
no?
about the multi-ethnic empire that existed 100 years ago, the Ottoman Empire, under the jizya system, in comparison to most of the Arab world right now. You would say the Palestinians are trying to drive the Jews out because they don't want them in their lands. Is that correct?
I don't know why you keep stating. Wait, can you tell
Yeah
me
or
what?
no?
Wait. Can you tell me what point you think you're making? Because you restated like 30 times. What point do you think you're making there?
Well, my point the entire time has terrorism gone up or down over the last 100 years?
My understanding is terrorism's fallen significantly over the past 100 years. I don't know how you would measure that though, or what particularly you're considering like a
terrorism
terrorist.
is relatively a new term, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true too. I don't even know if you would consider.
You want to make that's just kind of more of a bolster to my point. But go ahead.
I mean, maybe a better way to put it is we've sort of changed the way that we would define terrorism. I think that terrorism, as I understand it, like non-state actors who carry out attacks generally on civilians with the stated goal of shocking people into fear and all that stuff, into negotiation, I think is a relatively new phenomenon.
I just don't have. Do you have anything to show that it has gone up?
I mean, okay.
I mean, the main concern is like whether or not the Palestinians win, right? What's going to happen to the Palestinians win against the Israel state? Okay, like let's say they take down the Israel
Jews will
state.
be gone from the Arab
Oh,
world.
okay. So 100 years ago, when you had the jizya system under the Ottoman Empire, was that so much a concern? No, they were a multi-ethnic empire. So would you say the extremism has gone up or down over the last 100
Ottoman
years?
Empire does not exist today.
I agree 100%. But
think the
in
Ottoman
comparison to
Empire,
today
like-
and 100 years ago, would you say that they've become more extreme or less extreme?
It depends
What
on
do you mean by
which city
extreme?
you're
I don't know what you mean by extreme.
Okay, they're less tolerant towards the Jews. Isn't that the whole discussion about the Palestinians and the Jews in Israel?
They've been killing Jews for hundreds of years.
No,
They're
they didn't. 100 years ago in the Ottoman Empire, the jizya system allowed them to exist in the
You don't
Ottoman
think
Empire.
any
It was
They were
Jews
literally
were
hold on,
killed
and
in
also
the
we gotta
Ottoman
chill
Empire.
because there.
I never said that. I never said that it was a perfect utopia for Jews in the Ottoman Empire, but you can say qualitatively that dislike for the Jews has gone up over time because of British and American intervention.
So because the Ottoman Empire collapsed after losing World War I, by the way, because those nation states now are separate nation states, that means that it's worse off than it was when it was under the Ottoman Empire?
No, that's not
I'm
anything.
saying there's less tolerance towards Jews now, and part of that is because I think as a result of those nation states,
So
that
Jews
tend
started
out
fighting
of
back.
Wait, hold on. Also, wait, when we say less tolerance for Jews, wait. When we say less tolerance for, how many Jews even fucking live in?
I don't have an exact number.
Oh
but
wait,
I
hold
don't
on. What
know.
does the other guy have? He must know if he's pointing to this so much as an example of how tolerant the Ottoman
Well, the
Empire
jizya
was.
system. Yeah, look up the jizya system.
I know what the jizya.
mean, for
First
how
of all,
many?
it's not there. Yeah.
Then okay, so how's this a foreign concept to you?
Wait, it's not a foreign concept. First of all, what is jizya?
Jizya just means it's a set of religious tolerance for Christians and Jews in the Ottoman Empire, and the only requirement was they paid an additional tax to exist in the Ottoman Empire.
Okay.
Would you say that's less tolerant or more tolerant to different
First of all, that
religions, such as
wasn't the
Jews or
only
Christians
yeah.
compared to now?
That wasn't the only requirement. Jizya was a special tax required to be paid by dhimmi, or people that were considered less than or not Muslim in their societies. And depending upon what particular region you lived in and what particular time period you were in with the Ottoman Empire, there were other statuses conferred upon dhimmi as well, such as sometimes people raid your shit and steal your shit. You weren't allowed to participate in some forms of government. You weren't allowed to participate in any military military activity, so it really depends on what exactly you're talking about. But
Okay, that's fair.
what I'm
Do you think
asking is,
it's
if you're telling me that the Ottoman Empire was so unbelievably peaceful throughout the entire history of the Ottoman Empire, the entire region,
No,
ignoring the
never
fact
said that. I just pointed out a broad historical trend over the last 100 years. That's all I did, Destiny.
Hold on, a broad historical trend over the last 100 years. The Ottoman
Yeah,
Empire
would you
hasn't
say the
existed for
Pal-
100 years.
Your entire argument is about the Palestinians being less tolerant right now is because if they win, they're going to eradicate the Jews or kick them out of Israel.
Hold on,
Is that
do you
not
think-
your entire argument?
Do you think in 1930, do you think that the Middle East was more stable than it is right now?
No, it's after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Probably, of course not.
You think the Middle East right now is less stable than it was 100 years ago?
I mean, it was at the end of the empire. There was still some form of unity, but there's still uprisings going on.
The end of the Empire when the Armenian genocide and stuff was happening? That was more stable than it is now? Say yes or say no, and acknowledge that, okay, thank you. All right, so no, it was not more stable 100 years ago than it is now. I think the Middle East has achieved a pretty remarkable level of stability. There are still some regional conflicts for sure. Yemen is absolutely fucked. Syria is still pretty fucked. And
How's that
Lebanon's
going
still
in
pretty fucked.
Afghanistan?
Afghanistan? Well,
Iran?
now the Taliban is probably fairly stable because now they fucking run everything. Iran's been sanctioned to fuck, but the country still runs decently well.
Yeah, how tolerant are they?
Is that what we're measuring? We're just measuring by tolerance?
I mean, that's the whole discussion about the Palestinians and the Israel.
No,
Israelis,
that's not
right?
that's not the discussion. I don't think it has anything to do with tolerance, does it?
I mean, your concern is if the Palestinians win, they're either going to exterminate or kick the Jews out of Israel.
Yes.
That is their stated goal.
That's their stated goal. Can you prove that?
Yeah,
Because
that's what
Hamas says
does.
every Jew that hides behind every tree is going to be eliminated or whatever. And because if you poll both regions, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, they all support violence in exceedingly high numbers, like past 60%, in order to effect their ends. And more of them prefer a one-state solution with unequal democratic privileges than prefer a one-state solution with equal democratic
genocide
privileges.
wasn't even the Middle East.
What?
Never mind. The Armenian genocide wasn't even the Middle East. Where did it happen? That's a new one to know. All right, go on.
Okay. Yeah, I think that they would definitely want to, they probably want to push out or ethnically cleanse most of the Israeli citizens from Israel. Yes. Like the Jewish people, yes.
Okay, so would you say that's less or more tolerant than, like, say, under the jizya system? I mean, yeah, you could give examples of where that hasn't been the case throughout the entire Ottoman Empire, but my point again is, like, the broad historical trend of the increasing extremism in that region.
I don't know. It's probably more tolerant now because back then I don't think Jews were even allowed to buy that much fucking land in the Ottoman Empire. They would have been banned from it probably.
I mean, I would disagree with that, but I would say that I don't know if this is even where Alistair is going, so I hope I'm not totally.
Well, he's trying to pick like one weird metric by which to fight to prove that like Middle East conditions have degraded.
No,
or
I'm
something,
just-
and that's,
Well, I think his point generally is that there's a trend in the Middle East, broadly speaking, of like anti-Semitism. Right, it's a huge problem there. I think everybody recognizes that. And in my view, anyway, a big part of that has to do with the fact that many of the Arab states look at Israel as like a settler colonial project and something that is foreign to that region and is sort of being imposed on their people, right? And they view it as sort of like almost like a colony of Europe and the West.
I think
And
that was
it's,
definitely true
take-
in the 30s and 40s. I think that was definitely true when they started coming
Well,
over.
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
but wouldn't you say it's fair to say there's some connection between that belief in the 30s and 40s, which you call fair, and now the current wave of
Nope.
anti-Semitism?
I
or
think
the
most
current-
people have generally gotten over it.
Yeah,
Does it even matter?
So what do you
in the
think
same
drives
time?
the
Like, just real
anti-Semitism?
quick,
Wait,
though,
hold
like,
on,
Yeah,
what
let's
drives
not
the
forget.
anti-Semitism?
I don't think there is anti-Semitism right now. I'm not worried about it. What
In
anti-Semitism?
the Middle East, you don't think
What?
there's
There is
anti-Semitism?
anti-Semitism,
Dude,
but I
just
don't think it plays
contradict
out.
yourself.
I don't think that anti-Semitism in the Middle East right now is a big problem. Yeah, Arabs have like weird views of Jewish
Okay, so
people,
let the
but
Palestinians win if you're not concerned about it. If they can have a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, if you're not concerned about it.
my concern.
not
Hold
going
on, but you just said it earlier. Not you. I'm sorry, but your friend,
Go for it.
non-smoker, who was actually more insightful, was the issue wasn't against Jews. It was what they perceived as settler Europeans. That was their issue initially, and that's how they view Israel as like a settler colonial.
Okay, yeah.
That's not an anti-Semitically driven one. It could have been any group of people, I guess. It's not with Jews, they got like the extra
Sure.
religious element, but it could have been Christians or it could have been fucking.
But the all right, go ahead.
I guess my point here, and I think we got onto the anti-Semitism thing, or maybe I'm confused. I don't know. I got lost in all of this. But my point in bringing up the anti-Semitism thing, and my point in bringing up all of this is like this is sort of one of the origin points of violence in the region and destabilization. Is this tension or perceived tension between Muslims and Jews, or at least these certain non-state actor Arab groups and Jews, or whatever have you? And I think part of it is because they view, like I said, Israel as a settler colonial project. They also view some of Israel's conduct in the last, 75 years as being like extremely harsh and unfair and brutal. We could, of course, cite a bunch of examples where the Arab states have been aggressive towards Israel, and that's been unwarranted and whatever. It goes on and on and on. But my point is, this tension exists because they're viewed as like an outside entity.
I understand
right?
what you're saying, but I just
Right.
they would fight with themselves. Even if the Jews weren't there, the Arabs would all be fighting amongst themselves.
Why do you think that is? Just
Well, look at the Saudi and
Yeah,
the Yemen conflict. Look at the Saudis versus the Houthis.
Yeah,
They're
but-
fighting
okay, but
together.
wait,
it had
hold on, the
nothing
Yemen-
to do
hold
with
on,
Israel
Yemen-
and Palestine.
wait,
They're
wait.
bombing, like,
Yeah,
back
but
in
no, what had
2014, like they started killing the shit out of each other.
Yes. Yeah. So there's pockets in the Middle East, of course, Yemen's a great example, which were essentially like proxy conflicts throughout the Cold War, right? And then that led all the way into the, the modern era where if you look up like civil wars in Yemen, you get like 12 different fucking things.
So
like,
is
an
your
insane
argument
amount.
that every single war in the Middle East, or at least the majority of them, are a result of Israel, that Israel's existence?
No,
is
not at
the
all.
thing
No,
that-
no,
We're-
no.
he's
No,
more or
no,
less talking
no,
about like
no,
the
wait, let me answer him. No. What I'm arguing is that the Middle East, a vast majority of the violence and the destabilization there has been because it's been essentially like one big, or at least multiple parts of it have been proxy conflicts between the West and other powers, the Soviet Union or whoever it may be.
I understand that that's
right?
like the popular
Nutsmoker-
take, but I don't think that's the case.
Nutsmoker also wanted to talk about that. You said they'd be fighting even amongst themselves, even if Israel wasn't there.
Yes.
I mean, Destiny, just could you follow up with that? Because I really am
So
curious.
I
like-
think that there is
What's
an
the reason?
idea. Yeah. The reason. First of all, before I give it, why don't you tell me why you think I'm wrong, Alistair?
I don't think you're wrong. I just want to know your position.
Oh, so you
that's
think
all.
you think they would be fighting amongst themselves?
I haven't said anything. I actually just want to know your position.
I want to
dude.
know your position first, rather than playing 20 questions with you. So you
What,
can
what
keep
the
asking
fuck?
me.
I asked you the question first.
Yeah, I
Why
know.
don't you
because
answer why you think they'd be fighting amongst themselves?
You've asked me 50 million things without asserting any original position of your own, because I don't think you understand any part of this region. So I'm just curious, why can't you tell me? Why do you think?
Oh
they,
yeah, you're
do you
gonna
think they would-
deflect the question. Come on, dude. Don't
I've
be
answered
disingenuous.
literally
Come on,
every
man.
single question you've asked me tonight. Okay, so I'm just curious, why do you think?
No,
they
I want to
wouldn't
understand
fight?
like why you think they'd be fighting on themselves, regardless if Israel was in the region. Is because I don't know. Like again, do I have to go back to the Ottoman Empire? The
they're
Mughal
Okay,
Empire? Really?
the answer is that I don't know, and I just hate brown people. Now you tell me what you think the answer is. Why would they or wouldn't they? Go ahead.
I just think I just think Muslims are just inherently superior. Yeah, obviously, dude.
So you don't
yeah,
have an
they're
answer for
more
that.
cohesive. Neither do you. You hadn't really answered yourself.
Okay, well, I'll give you an answer. So my answer
Thank
is
you.
because even when Israel was starting to ship in citizens, what you saw among all of the competing Arab people that had initially, in letters to, there's a really famous one, but I don't remember it. But basically, Arabs were vying after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire for a pan-Arab
Yes.
state. Okay, people wanted to recreate, the Ottoman Empire without those fucking Turks
Yeah.
running everything. Okay, which they really didn't like because the Turks did run the Ottoman
Sure.
Empire. You keep saying all the Arabs got along and all the Muslims, blah, blah, but it actually was the Turks running them, okay? So they wanted to create a pan-Arab nation, okay, without the fucking Turks involved, which would have been based for them. But what you see when their conflict with Israel starts is there's actually a ton of vying against each other the entire time, vying for jockeying for that position, who's going to lead the world. So whether that was Nasser in Egypt in the 40s and 50s, or whether that was Saddam Hussein eventually with Iraq, or whether that was all of the other types of sectarian violence that occurs through other countries. The Yemen country is a really good example of that. Arabs were constantly, or whether that was the Iran-Iraq war, which some people report sees up to 1 million deaths that happened, okay, in that war, up to 2 million casualties overall. If you count
We're still
everything,
talking about
right?
post-Ottoman Empire because again, like you're not really making
Every
your
single
point.
conflict that I just brought up was a post-Ottoman Empire conflict that didn't involve
Yeah,
Jewish
what's your
people
point?
or Israel. My
Okay.
point is that these people
Even
would
if there'd be no
my
fighting
point
amongst
is that
themselves, you
these-
said even without Israel. This was right after the collapse of
I
the Ottoman
literally-
Empire.
every
I want
single-
you to justify
I just
why you
gave
think
it
that's
to
just
you.
the automatic default to the Middle East.
I just
like not
totally
necessarily
gave-
just the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
I
dude.
just said it. That wasn't because of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
You just
but
gave an instance of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. No fucking shit. What's your point here?
those things weren't instances of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Those were instances of Arab
You just
leaders
did.
that were vying to be leaders of a new pan-Arab state.
Okay. What's your point? Now,
My
actually
point is that they would have
justify why
vyed
you
for
think they'd
that
be fighting
even if Israel
regardless.
wasn't there.
Yeah, because it was the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. No fucking shit, dude.
So then
I
you
don't
agree
care
with
about
me.
the
Wait,
Ottoman
wait,
Empire.
so then you agree
The
with me.
Ottoman
Wait,
Empire
because the
has
You're
Ottoman
the one who gave this example
okay,
to
so then-
justify your reason why they'd be
because-
fighting regardless,
because-
even if Israel wasn't there. You
Do you
still
think
haven't
that,
justified your
hold
point,
on,
by
do
the
you
way.
think Israel being there is why the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
You got mad at me for saying they'd be all hunky-dory, happy
Do you
and
think that
kumbaya
Israel being
just
there is
as a
why the
default,
Ottoman
man.
Empire collapsed?
Like, come on, man. Like,
I
I'm
don't know
asking
what's
you
going
for
on
your
here,
position,
Mike.
because
Do
I'm
you
not
think
saying
wait,
that.
do you
I'm not
think
saying that, man.
Do you think that Israel being there is why the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
No, I'm asking you why you say they're going to be fighting regardless if Israel's not there.
I already
That's my
told you because they
question.
were all fighting amongst themselves, even with Israel there.
You gave an instance of the Ottoman Empire. That was just one instance.
What was
in
my
history.
instance of the Ottoman Empire?
The collapse of it.
No. Nasser was
Yes,
not the
you just
collapse
did.
of the Ottoman Empire. The 50s are not the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
So yeah, Destiny. I actually want to make a point here because I think it's fair to say that. So
Wait,
the
hold
Ottoman
on,
Empire
wait. I'm
collapsed.
sorry. Just wait. Around when do you think the Ottoman Empire collapsed? Maybe that's. Do you think the Ottoman Empire existed through like the 1950s and 60s, Alistair?
And
When did I ever say that or even imply that, dude?
Because when I brought up Nasser, I don't know how your go-to is collapse of Ottoman
Because
Empire.
you started with the Ottoman Empire, and I'm still wondering
I
what the
didn't
fuck
start
it has
with
to
the
do with
Ottoman
that they'd be
Empire.
fighting with themselves, even if the Israeli state wasn't there, dude. And in fact, that's in the 50s. That's already when Israel's getting started. That doesn't bolster your argument.
Wait, I'm
dude.
sorry. Israel was getting started in the 50s. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like we were going into that.
Okay.
You had people moving into there, but still, like, how does that justify your point? They'd be fighting
First of all,
regardless.
okay,
of
so Israel
not existing?
arguably was starting in the 1880s. I don't know where you get the 50s from. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Okay,
right
so
now.
then why
Okay,
are you even using the
non-smoker,
Ottoman
what
Empire
was
as an
your-
example? Because it
non-smoker-
collapsed
I
in
wasn't.
the
Non-smoker, what were you
1920s,
going to
dude.
say? Non-smoker, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
No.
So I was gonna mention how you talked about this Arab coalition and all that stuff, states jockeying for position and all of that, and I think that's reasonable and fair and all that. But two things. One, don't you think Israel's presence there also? I mean, enough questioning. I think Israel's presence there sort of contributes to tension between states, right, or at least tension in the region, right? In a way that did unify many of the Arab states, but ultimately, like you saw certain states like Egypt eventually like warm up relations with Israel and all of that stuff. It created a bunch of problems, right? In addition to that, I think the U.S. and the USSR, both investing money and resources and weapons and all of that stuff in the region, also led to a lot of instability. So I guess my point is, like, had there been no interference from the outside, which of course is very pie in the sky and maybe a little ridiculous, but had there been no outside interference from the U.S., the USSR, and Israel never been established as a state, yeah, there would probably be some jockeying for position. Ultimately, one power would have come to the forefront and probably established some sort of unified, peaceful solution there.
What? Look, I don't think you can justify, and I can't like fault. It's an unfalsifiable claim. I can't prove that's wrong, but it's very wishful thinking, right? So again, it's possible that may have happened. True, but it's also possible they could have descended into genocidal inter-country and rebels all over. It could have gotten worse. So
But
saying
Wick-
that Israel as a result of has created tension in the region is a fair statement to make.
I think also,
Okay.
you could even take a stronger, if you want to take a really edgy position, you could argue that Israel being there might have actually been a stabilizing force for the region. You could argue that. It gave all of the Arab states a common enemy for a little bit, so when they were bullying each other, it was really just to fight with Israel, and the fact that Israel was able to prove through military might a stable state that could exist there, the Arab states, one at a time, signing peace with Israel, maybe was a stabilizing force in that particular part of the world. Maybe. It's possible.
I think initially you could make that argument, but as Israel, solidified itself and became a regional power, I think ultimately it's been more divisive.
Well, no, I think that argument gets stronger over time, right? When Israel first founded, there was a lot of conflict in the region, right?
No, but
And there's been-
that to Destiny's point is that unified the Arab states around hating Israel, right?
Yeah, but
What
then
I'm
eventually
saying
they
is
started to like Israel because the U.S. paid them a lot of money, and then they started trading with
Right.
Israel. And they're like,
Which
"Yeah,
is
we're good."
which is making the
led
region more stable.
No, but it didn't lead to more stability. It led to, there, as Destiny mentioned, all these other conflicts in the region. I think part of it happened because certain states had warmer relations with Israel, other states didn't, right? And other states had warmer relationships with the West, and other states didn't. And that resulted in all of these little, conflicts, proxy conflicts. The Iran-Iraq War is a great example of that.
Yeah, but I don't think, for instance, the installation of the Shah, or the assistance of the coup from the United States at the behest of fucking Britain for British Petroleum and all of that shit, I don't think that was because of Israel, right? I don't think the civil war that's going on right now in Yemen is because of Israel. I don't think Israel is a destabilizing effect in the Middle
It's
East.
not the only destabilizing factor, but it's one of many. And I look at Israel as an extension of the U.S. in many ways.
Well, but I don't think that first of all, I don't think that's fair. But also, secondly, in what ways, I guess, is Israel destabilizing the region? We'll say in the past 20 or 30 years, aside from its interregional conflict with Palestine. I feel like I don't think they're contributing.
The best example is obviously the one you asked me not to cite, and I would say that the best example would be that conflict with Palestine, which is leading to destabilization now.
Well, but when you say that, you're talking about the Houthis?
The Houthis, Hezbollah, and I mean, I think Iran would probably be a disruptive force there. Regardless.
But like even the Houthis, like their origination as like Haiti, you know, Shia tribes, people, and everything in Yemen, like all of this civil war, like you said it yourself, like Yemen has been in civil wars for the past 100 years with itself. The Houthis just happen to be like the current leaders on that civil war right now in terms of like controlling territory and everything. But I don't think that's because of Israel. I don't think Israel has any impact on that whatsoever.
They have no impact on the Houthis coming to power. I think this goes back to my original argument that they have an impact on how the Houthis conduct themselves in that region, right? Their view is if we attack international shipping with some supposed, I know you guys hate this, it's just my opinion, this is their excuse, this is what they claim, that we have a justifiable region to fuck shit up right in this strait. Okay, now we can sort of assert ourselves as a legitimate regional power. Had it not been for this conflict between Israel and Hamas, then perhaps there would have been no strikes on shipping vessels. And my evidence for that would be the Houthis have been active in that region for years and years, and they haven't tried anything like this.
Well, they have though. I mean, like I need to look up like attacks in like the straits. I'm not sure how much.
Not to this extent.
Not to this extent. I agree, but like they literally gotten ballistic missiles from Iran that they shot into Riyadh, the Saudi Arabian capital. Like they've literally shot ballistic missiles from.
But that was because the Saudis were backing the other groups that they're fighting with for control over Yemen.
Sure.
I'm saying.
I understand, but that's not related to Israel, right? And Egypt was backing groups in Yemen as well, and Iran was backing groups in Yemen as well. Like everybody's kind of like, but these are all Arab states. I don't think Israel is like backing anybody
I'm
in Yemen.
pretty sure Israel's getting out of it for the most part. I can't remember. At least I'm not aware of any side Israel is backing.
Israel, you could tie into this recent conflict.
But I mean, they say that, but I think that they like Iran wants to fight with Saudi Arabia, and Iran will look for any reason to get their proxies to fight with Saudi Arabia. It happens to be Israel, but if it was any other like Sunni majority country there, it might be just as much of that. It might be the country of Israel Hamid that that Hamas is operating out of, and that Houthis are shooting missiles into the ocean to support. Like,
I'm of the belief that the Houthis aren't necessarily just an Iranian proxy. I don't know if that's exactly the argument you're making. I think they have their own agenda here.
For sure,
100%. Right, so they're trying to establish their own autonomy, I guess would be a way to put it, right?
Yes.
Like, we can conduct ourselves however we want and fucking deal with it. And I think part of their justification for that is this conflict in Gaza. And, look, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys don't see that connection whatsoever. I think that it's a big part of their messaging. I think in their justification.
I just don't think it matters.
Well, and I think
it matters.
And what you're saying is true in that, like the Houthis' takeover of the government and everything was largely in response to the administration, Ali Abdul Saleh, that was supported by Saudi Arabia and that coalition before, right? Yeah, for sure. A lot of people didn't like him for a lot of good reasons, and that was part of where the Houthi gained a lot of their fighting force and a lot of the support through that country. However, as the Houthis became more established and were fighting more and more with Saudi Arabia, right? Because now Saudi has a coalition that they lead where they go airstrikes and everything. The Houthis originally do not want to be taking part in any conflicts on behalf of Hezbollah and Iran, because the whole part of the whole condemnation of like Saleh and prior governments was like, oh, you're just stooges of the West, you're stooges of the governments. However, over the past 5 or 6 years, as the Saudi coalition attacks have stepped up, now I think the Houthis, well, not now, but prior to this, they're looking at other countries like, okay, well, fuck, now we're going to get kind of fucked. We know how to conduct war well. We've kind of proven ourselves. Now I think they look to Hezbollah and Iran for assistance in terms of weapons and assistance in terms of targeting. And as a result of that, they're going to be taking part more in Iranian-backed affairs, because Iran's not just going to support, they don't get anything at all out of it. And while fighting with Saudi Arabia is good, destabilization of the Red Sea and everything is also good, because now they've got like even more conflict in the region, and Iran is a loser right now, so any conflict probably benefits them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's actually a very good telling of the whole history with Saleh and all that stuff and how the Houthis came to power. And I think that's all well and good and valid and, would explain why they have different interests now than when they initially came to power. It's kind of interesting. They actually brought Saleh back and formed a coalition with
2012, I think, yeah. Or 2014? I think in 2016 they killed him, right?
But yeah, like a year later killed him, which is... but it's this rapidly changing political climate there because it's ultra unstable. And I think if you look at the Houthis' track record, it doesn't actually indicate like some great vision of like these goals, these well thought out goals. It's more like these opportunistic moments where they do this or they do that or they carry out that strike or whatever. And this is just one moment where they say, hey, there's a moral justification for this supposed. We have an excuse, right? And we're going to do this and assert ourselves. We know we're probably going to get attacked back, and that's going to make us look simple. right?
Yeah, but I think the
that's
reason
the
why
thinking
now
on
is
that.
because they're getting roped into the whole Iran-Hezbollah paradigm. Because if Iran and Hezbollah didn't exist, assuming I'm being like as fucking unbelievably charitable as possible, Houthis and the people that support the Houthis really just kind of want like a stable Yemen. And they didn't really appreciate the 33 fucking year-long presidency of Saleh, who refused like on 3 or 4 different occasions to actually transfer power, despite saying over and over again that he would. And they don't appreciate the Saudis trying to bomb and destroy their fucking shit all day and fuck their people over. So like, you know what? The Houthis are the ones that emerged as the powerful leaders in the area, and they're the ones that are, you know, kind of taking point at everything. However, I don't think they ever would have been involved in bombing vessels and shipping lanes if it wasn't because they saw Iran and Hezbollah could provide a lot of support to them. So when they say they're attacking it because of Gaza, that's half true, but it's really because of Iran's relationship with Israel and Saudi Arabia, would be my take.
Yeah,
like,
those
because
two
if Iran and
things-
Hezbollah didn't exist, do you think the Houthis would be targeting shipping lanes?
No, I don't think they'd have the capabilities.
Yeah. Or
honestly.
even the
But
desire. Like, they're already like,
mean,
that country's already like fucking falling apart. That country is fucked in so many different ways. Like, why would they want to draw more negative attention? Like, I don't think that the Houthis are the same as like Hamas, where Hamas wants civilian deaths. Hamas needs civilian deaths because that's how they function. I don't think the Houthis are functioning like a quote-unquote
Some
terrorist
evidence
group.
of
They're
that.
just like a militant tribe that is
Some
like
evidence
establishing.
of that is that we have been able to strike their sites without civilian casualties because they, at least in this conflict, aren't stationing their civilians there. If this was Hamas, if Hamas was doing it, these would be schools or hospitals that they would be firing. That would be
Houthis
their
would
radar
lose
scan.
their moral right very, very quickly. I think Palestinians feel like we'll all, or not all of them, but a lot of them feel like, fuck it, we will die to fight Israel. I don't think Houthis feel like we'll die to bomb merchant shipping vessels or people that support the Houthis. I think they would lose support pretty quickly if they were to start engaging in like destructive behavior like that. But the support they're getting from Iran and Hezbollah, I think, makes up for it right now.
I mean, listen, I somewhat respect that, but it goes to what Wick said before about, like, no proxy conflicts in the Middle East. It's, like, unfalsifiable. Like, there's no way to know what would happen if Hezbollah and Iran weren't regional powers that had wanted to form some kind of axis of resistance. But what I know for sure is that the Houthis have their own interests, right? They're not merely a puppet of Iran. And I think, again, part of their interest is, I mean, to be fair, I think that they've sort of achieved their goal, right? They want to be seen as a legitimate power, and fucking half the world is talking about them.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, they've forwarded themselves as a legitimate, you know, or seemingly legitimate force, right?
Well, then you're happy to oblige them in that if it means kicking their shit in, killing their radar sites, killing their missile capacity. And they can stop now. If they've achieved their goals, they can stop now. But they're not stopping now, right? I think that, like, this idea, what they want, and I think you're right, is that they want larger legitimacy. But I think that by not striking them and getting America to back down, it would give them even more legitimacy, right? That would make them like heroes, right? To beat the great Satan, so to speak, right? To beat the West, that would be heroic. They would, they're seen, and a lot of people in that region, eyes would go up immensely. So again, we cannot allow that to be happening. We have to be able to show that we have degraded their ability to strike at civilian shipping vessels throughout the region. We cannot let them blockade this area of the world. We have to stop that from happening. And if it takes us sending a few carrier groups for a few months, I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this is, honestly, it could be even, like, steel manning your position. But I do kind of want to mention, like, you know, Reagan's actions in Lebanon, right? Like, Reagan withdrew the Marines, right? And essentially, you know, made it seem like there was a point at which he would not support Israel's actions there, okay? Very different in many, many ways. But I guess my point is, ultimately, like, Hezbollah, I think, gained a ton of legitimacy out of the end of those conflicts with Israel, right? And I guess you're expressing some concern that we would give more credibility to the Houthis if we withdrew. But at the same time, whether or not
just that though, like that's yes, but not just that. It's that you would encourage other actors in the region to behave similarly if they can know that they can get their goals accomplished by attacking civilians.
I think there's also something
Right.
to be said for, like, the U.S. will fuck your shit up if you act inappropriately, and people try to be mindful of that. Like, I would say that part of the reason why we were able to pull out of Afghanistan without the Taliban just like bombing the fuck out of all of our shit, and by not doing it, is because they genuinely wanted us to get the fuck out. Like, the Taliban did not want us there anymore, and they know that if they were to engage in attacks like that, there would be another surge and their shit would be fucked up for however many more years, you know, we've got the political will to stay there. So I think that, like, I think the U.S. works as a decent deterrent for ensuring, you know, relative tranquility in some respects. So.
A lot of the results of a lot of these the heightened tensions in the world, right, is because perceived or real, people see American hegemony as being less, right, as kind of fading away, as America having less power than we did back in the 90s, right? And I think that we're seeing the world fracture because of that. We're seeing this regional conflicts are increasing, right? We're seeing this rising tensions in a lot of the world, not just in that region either. We can look at China saber rattling at Taiwan, right? Like, the collapse of Pax Americana is going to lead to death and destruction throughout the world, right? And I don't want that. I want to stop that from happening. I would like America to be strong again in the world. I want us to be a leader in the world, because if not us, then who? And the who is very clear. It will be either Xi Jinping or Putin, and I don't want either of those things.
I mean, I think trying to, like, reestablish the Pax Americana, which I think is, you know, to some extent waning, because objectively, you know, our actions throughout the rest of the world have pissed a lot of people off, and they're seeing the rise of powers like definitely China, and to a lesser extent Russia, as like opportunities for large global powers that they would prefer to have a favorable relationship with. I don't think that the best response to that is necessarily carrying out more violent action, thus pushing different regions of the world more into China's circle or Russia's circle. I don't know if there's much that we can do about that, but I certainly think we don't have to, you know, pour gasoline on a fucking fire.
I definitely,
Yeah,
I agree
that's
with
another
you.
thing. Do you think this is going to also more or less like push people to China and Russia, or more the east side of the hemisphere? Like, again, because like dictating from terms and conditions from above really only works when you have a monopoly on power, and the United States isn't really staying hegemon for the next 100 years or so like that. That's entirely debatable whether that's going to be the case 100 years from now.
So I think that the rest of the world does appreciate the United States doing what it's doing. I think that we have an issue with, I call it Iraq PTSD, where we start to do every single foreign policy that we just like, oh my god, it's just like Iraq, and I don't think that's the case. I think that a much stronger case could be made for intervention, even financially, into this like Ukraine, and I think that like arguments can be made to defend Israel, and I think arguments can be made to bomb places in Yemen that are shooting missiles in the sea. Just because we've made some mistakes with our foreign policy doesn't mean that we have to restrict ourselves from participating in foreign policy at all. Like
Afghanistan.
I said, when the mission in Afghanistan was good, the nation building afterwards was bad.
Yeah, like once we left, it basically collapsed and went back to the way things were, like before we were in there.
Yeah, that was
Except
before
the Al
execution,
Qaeda
but
is
the goal
not
was
there
fine.
anymore. Now the Al Qaeda is in Yemen, getting butt fucked by the Houthis. So the I think we have to look at like what is the goal of U.S. foreign policy? What are areas that we could contribute well in, and what are areas that we shouldn't contribute in? So like, for instance, I think that our involvement, well, I would say that our involvement with Houthi stuff, this is an example of where the U.S. military power can shine. Literally the entire world supports it. Again, on that UN Security Council resolution, Russia and China abstained from voting against it. They just like, you know, were like, oh, well, be careful, guys. But like, obviously they don't want these shipping lanes to get fucked. So I think that broadly speaking, I think most people in the world right now support the United States mission. I think everybody thinks we have the moral authority to be there. I don't think there's any country even if the people that
I don't
like
even think they're concerned about their shipping being attacked. Like the all Chinese crew has been a thing that the ships have been using to
But
avoid getting
Beijing
attacked.
gave
by
a
Houthis.
warning just the other day to Houthis to cut it out, or they're going to.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this talking
That
point
was a
is-
public pressure for
this
Iran
talking
yesterday,
point
right?
is not true. I don't know why you keep repeating it. It sounds like you got like two numbers off a website and you're just arguing. The reality is the price of shipping containers has skyrocketed. The reality is
Yeah,
that
but that doesn't
traffic
chip
through
in
the
my point,
Suez
though.
Canal is cut in half. Okay, right now the perception around the world is that it is not safe to ship stuff through that strait, and insofar as the United States can enforce safety, we ought to, because it's our, if there's any noble mission we could ever have, it was to make sure that people feel safe sailing ships through the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. First of all, I mean, we probably disagree about lots of the examples you cited, Ukraine and all that stuff, but we don't have to go down that fucking turnpike necessarily. I would argue that there's a bunch of examples of our interference other than Iraq, and I might have to go back more than 20 years. that were examples where we got involved in these different regions and created all sorts of instability and problems, and it didn't end up making increasing our view in a favorable way.
Well, I mean, like,
know how to
I think
put
we
it.
should be careful, though, right? Like, when we say we got involved in all these regions in a horrible way, like, was South Korea a huge mistake?
I mean,
So-
I
so
would,
you-
Or what about
you're-
I would
the?
argue yes.
You
So
think
if you're
so?
talking about-
What about like Kuwait? Was that a mistake? That intervention against Saddam Hussein?
Well,
So if you're-
okay.
Or what about-
Kuwait is a unique example, and I think all of these are unique examples. On the one hand, you could make the argument that getting involved in Kuwait helped the Kuwaiti people, and it was a very I don't know, magnanimous gesture to these innocent people who are being invaded. I would also say that a lot of our actions in supporting Saddam Hussein to begin with probably enabled and emboldened him to carry out military actions like that in the first place.
But I got a question. If you're concerned about world trade, like Destiny, I got a question for you. Like, wouldn't it be better and more cost-effective to talk to Israel and maybe do like a land back program or something like that to the Palestinians and come with a two-state solution? Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna spitball here.
Palestinians don't want a two-state solution or land swap, so no. They
They
turn-
don't want a land back?
They.
It's just
What do you mean land back? What do you mean by land
Like,
back?
give them back some land back.
Like what
That's what I'm
land?
saying.
Like all of Israel?
Oh, not all of Israel, but sure as hell a lot more than just the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
No. Why would they?
Well, you're saying they don't want that? Like, what are you saying here?
There were
The
deals.
Palestinians.
The Palestinians had the ability to negotiate deals in 2000 and a little bit onwards, and they rejected it. It seems like they just want a one-state solution.
Do you think they would settle for maybe giving them a little bit additional land, more so than what they have right now? I think they would say yeah, and I
No,
think that'd be a more
they never
cost-effective
have.
way than trying to do.
I don't think they would. No. The majority of Palestinians don't support a two-state solution right now. Israel's definitely.
I think
not.
they'll take some land sessions more than zero.
What
I,
land
I,
sessions?
I would bet
it's
that.
never going to be
I
more
give
than
them
it's
some back.
never going to be more than the 67 borders, and that's the starting point. And even from there, when they had an opportunity under Arafat for 95%, and I think under the Clinton parameters, that 97% of the land to be back, they still walked away from those negotiations. So it seems like they just want a one-state.
Yeah, but then
solution.
use that as a justification to take more, if I can remember correctly.
What do you mean justification to take more?
Well, they kept expanding to the point that we have the borders now. Is that not correct?
Israel, you mean?
The Green Line
Yeah,
or
Israel.
the
Between
borders.
the West Bank.
I mean, they've
and, the
continued
Gaza
to
Strip.
expand settlements, but like there are still people still recognize like the 67 borders or whatever that means.
Sure, but then like giving them some land back, would that not at least mitigate some of the solutions by pulling the Israelis back and say, okay, we're going to give you some land back, maybe we can have some peace here?
Why would they expect to have peace if they give them some land back?
Well, because it's their land. They're upset about the Israelis taking their land in the first place.
Firstly,
Correct?
it's not their land and it was never their land. And secondly, they want all of it
What do you-
back,
what-
not just some of it.
What do you mean it's not their land? They've been living there.
I'm sorry, where do you live? Do you own that land?
I don't love my land, but I live here. I
Okay,
wouldn't
that
like to
doesn't mean
be
that you-
forcibly removed from my land and told to go move someplace else because it's somebody else's land.
Tough shit. Most of the people that are in Israel today are Jews that were excised from other Arab countries during all of the pogroms and everything that happened every time Israel won a war against other Arab states. I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. I'm sorry, it sucks.
Yeah,
but, like,
but that's, you would agree at least that like events like the Nakba and all of that kind of stuff were like at least pretty brutal, right? People have a right to be upset about that. Perhaps one way of relieving the tension there would be, I don't know, some kind of like land reparations is what
I
he's
feel like the way that it
suggesting.
If you want to do the cost-effective way at mitigating this, why not give them some land back, and then maybe the Houthis will actually pull back some of their attacks on shipments? Because your concern is global trade, right?
because they don't want
I think that's a
land
lot more
back.
cost-effective than launching a bunch of missiles.
Because one, we're not even talking about land back for the current conflict. We're talking about the elimination of Hamas. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
why would you give land back without like a full peace deal on the table? Number three, Palestinians don't seem to want land back. They seem to want a one-state solution. And number four, you don't even have a cohesive body to negotiate on behalf of the Palestinians.
okay,
Number
if I-
five,
if I-
there's sorry, go ahead.
Go for it. No, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Number five, I think that Iran and Hezbollah and the Houthis are still going to be motivated for regional conflict against Israel because they don't like the Saudi-U.S.-Israel alliance there. I don't know. How many other reasons do you want?
Oh, but my main point was that, okay, yeah, sure, maybe they want a one-state solution. They want all the Israelis out of that region. Okay, I can grant you that. But what makes you think they won't say, take a little bit land back, give them a little bit land back and say, hey, let's have a peace here? That something's better than nothing. Would you not agree?
They rejected it in 2000.
I mean, I would argue some sort of peace settlement would require probably like at least the removal of Israeli settlements in the West Bank and Gaza. I mean, Gaza they've already left, but the West Bank.
I want to short circuit a lot of this. Look, if I believed, right, that what you were saying, Alistair, and
Go for it.
Smoker,
I
would
feel like this
be,
guy's goal. He just keeps trying to ask me a
would
question I
work,
don't know
right?
the
If we
answer to
just gave
something,
them
and
a
then he's gonna be
little
like,
land,
ah,
the Houthis would
like it's
stop,
just fucking
there would be
retarded.
peace in the
But he
region,
doesn't know.
all would be well.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be like an
for
asshole,
it.
but like
I'd be
Jesus.
great. I'm like,
Tell you what, you can even bomb them after the fact. You can bomb the fuck out of
problem
the Houthis.
is, if I may finish, the problem is I don't think it will. There is no evidence to suggest it will.
Okay,
in fact,
tell you what,
there's
tell you what.
plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. That in fact, by giving in to the demands of the Houthis right now, that it would only embolden them and other actors in the region to continue to engage in this kind of practice every time they have a disagreement or they want something or concession from the West.
Tell you what, give them back some of the land, and then you have my permission to fucking bomb the fuck out of them if they still
I
start
don't
shit. How about
believe
that?
you. I don't believe you. I think.
Okay,
that
what's the loss? You
there
get a
would
little
be- I
land,
think
like
there would be
Israel.
concessions, like when Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip occupation and allowed elections back in 2004, 2005, that area, right? Israel tried that. What happened? Hamas got power, and they immediately threw everyone that didn't agree with them off a roof, right? They engaged in a coup in their own country because they wanted to kill all the Jews, right? And so we have very recent, this wasn't like 50 years ago, this was less than 20 years ago that this happened.
Actually, Hamas had a really good
Obviously,
reason
right,
for
there's plenty of
trying to kill all the
evidence to
Fatah
suggest
people, and
that
it's because
giving into
the
them
Fatah
just
people,
isn't
at the behest of the
going
British and the Americans, were actually planning a coup. But I'm not giving Alistair
I
that
mean,
answer.
I don't think.
Give me some
just
instances
giving-
where
There
you
is a
give
good
it back
answer
to
in
them.
response to that,
Give
though,
me
but
some
he doesn't know
instances
it.
where you
We
say you give it
withdrew
back.
from the occupation of Gaza. Well, we, not me. Israel withdrew from the occupation of Gaza in 2005, right?
Yeah, I don't think that just giving in to them is a reasonable
Sure.
way to put it, or even a good solution in saying, okay, well, just remove the settlements, dust your hands, and that's it. But I think that should be part of peace negotiations, right? Like removing the settlements from the West Bank. Obviously, that's like a huge source of tension there. It's a huge, look, part of diplomacy, I think, is you're looking at like a bunch of conflagration points, and you're trying to put out as many fires as you can, right? And it is stupid to say, okay, well, you just, resolve one little thing and everything else will work out. What I'm suggesting is maybe a lot of these things could be part of a bigger solution here, right? Like maybe resolving this thing in Gaza, which is, not a simple solution at all, but part of it could be like, yeah, we're going to negotiate, removal of settlements in the West Bank. We're going to negotiate a return to this, that, and the other borders. I don't exactly know what the demands would be, right? And then, on the side of the Palestinians, some sort of security guarantees, some sort of like, I don't know, like a ceasefire, like permanent ceasefire agreement or something. Like diplomacy can achieve a lot of fucking things. There's a ton of precedent for that. And I think, unfortunately, you have to negotiate with the other side that you want peace with, right? At a certain point.
I think that your point is actually 100% true. I think that there does need to be like huge negotiations that involve like very, very, very multilateral probably the United States, probably Saudi Arabia, definitely Israel, right? But I think that the issue is that it feels like the Arabs have kind of given up on the Palestinians and the Palestinian cause. They don't really care much about them anymore, and it seems like they're more invested in kind of this like conflict going on with Iran. And so if the Arab states aren't really invested much in the Palestinian cause and don't care to negotiate, and if Iran is like the main threat, and if Israel just sees the Palestinians kind of like a nuisance, there's basically nobody that's negotiating on behalf, and there's like almost no incentive to figure out like what to do. Since like right now they've been basically rounded up by the fucking world for 80 years to fight, and that's all they know and that's all they want right now. And I think that's like the challenge with Israel is how do you negotiate with an enemy that really just like wants you dead? Because that's not just a Hamas problem; it seems to be widespread like a Palestinian problem, and that's like a very difficult thing to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable, and I understand that. I think that any sort of peace negotiation, like you said, would have to be multilateral, and that would mean, I think, reaching some point of like a positive relationship between the U.S. and Iran, which seems like totally far out there and ridiculous to suggest. But, look, I actually listened to a little bit of your discussion with Ben Shapiro, and I kind of felt like that was sort of your position, is that, maybe I'm totally wrong, but that we don't want like this ultra hostile relationship with Iran. Like it's actually bad for everyone. Maybe like there's some opportunity there somewhere for like a peaceful, rapprochement. Like we can talk things out. I think if we stabilize or try to stabilize that relationship, it can lead to all sorts of other possible prospects for peace. Gaza being one of them.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
You know,
I don't know enough Iranian history to know why that is impossible, but it seems to be impossible right now. But I feel like if peace somehow could be reached between like the U.S., Iran, and Saudi Arabia, somehow, I don't know what would have to happen to make that happen, but if it did, I feel like literally all the other dominoes would fall into place. I think everything else would be trivial to solve. That's my feeling.
And I agree too. I just, again, and in this moment in time, where we are now, when we look at the reality of the situation now, that is an untenable goal in the next, I think, year, 5, even 10 years. I don't think it's happening. And right now, as we speak, Houthi missiles are being fired at civilians. And regardless of what we want or what the ideal solution would be, we have to stop that. That has to stop. It has to stop. And negotiations, I don't think we'll stop it. We can just degrade their ability to do it. It won't stop entirely, probably, but we can degrade it enough so that it's much, much less effective for them. That's all. That's my thoughts.
Yeah,
I don't know. We're kind of circling here, so.
No, I mean, I feel like we're kind of coming around on a little bit of common ground, which is good,
Yeah.
you know. I would also say that, like, I mean, maybe this sounds totally far out there, but, you know, having a better relationship with a country like China would be beneficial in all of these, you know, various conflicts. I think that they're the second, you know, as the second largest economy in the world, a major military power, you know, having a good relationship with them, people might look at like some sort of negotiation with China, America, and X being a good, you know, basis for
Yeah,
peace.
but I'm not
in
willing to
the
sacrifice the Taiwanese people, for example, to do that. So.
Well, yeah, and I understand, you know, you're very protective of Taiwan and all that, but I don't know if there's like an imminent invasion. I think that whole narrative is like very overblown.
I disagree. Okay. Well, I think so.
Well,
Anything else?
no, I mean, I don't know. Alistair, do you have anything you want to throw out there?
I don't have any final thoughts, you know.
Did you
Good
like
discussion.
where Armenia was, or?
Well, you know, I mean, I guess that's it. This was a good discussion, very interesting.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, Destiny. I know you're a busy guy, and
Yeah, no,
Wick,
appreciate
you
the
know,
time.
Wick, you have lots of like pizza rolls to eat and shit like that, so I appreciate you, you know, donating your eating as well.
Okay, thank you. Gang, if you like to have it, wherever I stream, and you can check me out YouTube at Wick-TV. I have a Kick channel, Wick TV, and a Twitch channel as well, Wick TV, you can check out. Could always use support. And thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you.
anyone want to check me out? Twitch.tv/non-smoker, non_smoker.
YouTube, Alistair the Great, YTV. So I appreciate you having me here. This has been a good conversation. Been very heated, but other than that, I don't have much else to say.
Destiny, who are you?
YouTube.com/Destiny, Kick.com/Destiny.
All right, boys. Thanks.
Enjoy the conversation. Thanks for having us on. Peace, peace.
You think I should have been meaner? I feel like I was already pretty mean. I feel like one of the things that like bothers me is that like I feel like pretty dumb. I feel pretty humiliated if I show up to have a debate with somebody I don't know anything. It really bothers me. The idea that somebody else would do that to me, like not know anything, but then be so like indignant and unaware. Yeah. Like that whole guy's strategy was to just ask me 25 different questions to see if I wouldn't know the answer to something, even though he didn't know anything about the entire region or the history or, yeah, I don't know. Can you explain your anti-Semitism isn't a problem in the Middle East point, please? I mean, I think that a lot of the Middle East is anti-Semitic. I just don't know if it would manifest that much because they've all got their own shit going on right now. That's kind of what it seems to be the case, right? It's not like people are clamoring in Egypt and Saudi Arabia for the government to go fucking destroy Israel. Like, they all just kind of think Jews run the world and they hate them, but they like, are like, whatever, fuck them. That's what it feels like, at least. But, I don't know. Over time, they've kind of, like, mellowed out. They've gone from kind of like a Hitler anti-Semitism to like a toothless, like Nick Fuentes anti-Semitism. That's the feeling. He seemed like an Ottoman Empire weeb. Auto boots are peak retards. Well, but he didn't even know anything about the Ottoman Empire. How many times can you scream jizya at somebody? Why was he so obsessed with the Ottoman Empire? If I had to guess, if that guy is indeed a tank, my guess is going to be that Remember, the broad tanky narrative is that West bad, anything else good. That's the broad narrative. So, at the end of World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsing and having its borders redrawn, he's going to say that, like, the Brits were bad and America was bad for beating the Ottoman Empire, for the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and for drawing borders for new countries. That was a big, bad, horrible thing. And because that was a big, bad, horrible thing, now everybody's fighting and they're angry at each other. But if we would have just left the Ottoman Empire intact, to have power and to run their shit, everything would have been good. So I think that's just the difference. Ottoman Empire, not America, not Britain, good. No Ottoman Empire, borders drawn by Britain, bad. Britain, France, I guess. Yeah. His whole strategy was to pick a small point in time when the Ottoman Empire was peaceful and relatively accepting of minorities. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that, like, even accepting of dhimmis in the Ottoman Empire was, like, very based on region, very based on time period. Like, you can go through the Ottoman Empire's history and find, like, genocides and massacres and shit, like, they happened. You use a notepad to organize your arguments. Do you think a shared document with moderator oversight used in debates could help stop miscommunication and looping? It could also be a publicly saved document. Maybe, that'd be interesting. Illuminator, thank you so much. He was completely masking his actual beliefs in the debate. His Twitter was full of October 7th apologism. Yeah, I realized it after like 2 questions, and I should have been more firm because I realized that he was a demagogue that didn't know anything, and that's why he kept asking me questions. But then when I finally forced him, I was like, well, hold on, why don't you tell me this? He wouldn't answer, and he kept laughing and joking because he was nervous. The reason why is because he was nervous that he would say something that was factually inaccurate, and that he would be able to come back, and then I would come back on him and make him look dumb, right? Especially after the Armenian comment, and especially after Israel came in the 1950s comment. He probably didn't want to, you know, put his foot in his mouth anymore and say something stupid, so. Trump liable for 83 million. Did you see? I did not. The other guy seemed kind of reasonable, but I wonder what his Ukraine takes are. The guy in the top right, I think the guy is, he might be like a chill, cool person, but I think he might be a tanky. Just a guess. The South Korea comment made me wonder, but then it also sounds like he probably doesn't support Ukraine. Makes me wonder. Destiny, imagine you watch, or I'm sorry, Destiny, I don't watch you live ever, so I imagine you get asked this a lot, but I would love to know a quick combo about the ask me that couple weeks ago. I'm still grieving. Oh. Well, hold on. Maybe this is bait. Maybe he's grieving because he really liked the fact that this dude tried to, you know, go to Moscow and depose Putin. Maybe he really supported that, you know? Pisco, let's go. 10 minutes. Where are you at? I don't think you hit on the Islam being a religion that absolutely hates Jews enough. The Hadith quote by Hamas charter is not just an extreme. Yeah, I know. I know you guys like the religion aspect. Okay, I'm cucked there. His bio says Marxist-Leninist. Oh, holy shit. Okay. Links to the gray zone. Oh yeah, so he is like super tanky. Also, yeah, I'm not sure. Did that guy actually think the Ottoman Empire fell because of Israel? I wasn't sure if, yeah, Jesus. All right, hey, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. How are you?
Have you strapped up yet? Are you ready to fight?
Yeah, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Got my AR, going down to the border.
So, where do you think we're headed with all that? Do you know how many National Guards have started to send people down to the border?
I don't know about that.
Wait, you don't? I thought the announcement was some had already been. Had he just said he'd asked for multiple some, or that some had already gone down? I thought multiple ones had already started to go down.
Yeah, Oklahoma said they're sending people down,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure what the status of that is. I don't know if it's LARPing or if what they're intending, but
I mean, it doesn't. Well,
Biden needs to be strong.
we need to say careful when you say LARPing. LARPing is like people on Twitter, but these are like state governors. Right?
Yeah.
They're not role playing.
True.
They are them things. They are the dudes.
They
They're
are
that
the
guy. Yeah.
Biden needs to be strong and zero tolerance for rebellion and insurrection from the states.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, that statement that you made is very strong and extreme, right? Because you're talking about
Which
like,
statement?
well, what you're talking about is like arresting governors, essentially, right?
If Biden asserts federal authority over
Which
the
he
border,
has.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
the
like, if he
Supreme
does it in
Court
an
has already
explicit way,
defended
like-
him, right?
Yeah, the Supreme Court. It wasn't before them, like whether or not, ordering Texas to do something, but they've made it clear through their ruling that I believe, right, because one of the underlying factors to consider about whether to grant stay or grant an injunction is likelihood to succeed on the merits. So they've indicated that if there's a conflict here, Biden's going to win. That's why everyone who's
Hold
like,
on, wait.
"But they
What
didn't
do
order
you
Texas,
mean by
they
that?
didn't-"
If there's a conflict here, Biden's going to win. A
Yeah,
legal one
so
or a
the-
military one?
If there's a legal conflict, yeah. Everyone's like, we're never ordered to Texas to do anything. They didn't order anything. It's not about that. It's about what the Supreme Court is signaling, what their precedent has been. The federal government has supremacy in matters of immigration and border. It's inherent to the sovereignty of the United States government. And so it's absolutely the case that if this goes to the Supreme Court in terms of like a legal challenge, that we would expect Biden to have the absolute edge.
Yeah, but I don't think we're worried right now about the legal challenges. I think we're worried about the fact that post-Trump Republicans don't really seem to care about rule of law anymore.
Yeah, and this isn't about immigration either.
No,
it's not about policy.
Of course not.
Like, if Biden wanted some fences or some razor wire, or if Trump had wanted it when he was in office, and Texas had said the same thing, or California had said the same thing, I would be just as outraged. It's not about the underlying policy. I don't even know like whether there's razor wire or not. Like, I don't really care. I expect there to be barriers of some kind. I don't really know the humanitarian ramifications of it or not. It's not gone into my like analysis at all. I think that if Biden asserts like control and says these people are going here and you can't stop them, and any state actor orders people to not let them in after that happens, or orders force to be used or threat of force to be used, I think they should start arresting people 100%. That's insurrection, bro.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
not good.
It's like, suppose there were a federal fort and a bunch of state troopers were blocking entry into it.
It's not a matter of if the answer is simple or not. It's just, but it's not easy, right? The idea of the National Guard going down to arrest sitting governors or other, state
Department
guards
of
or
Justice,
whatever
I would say,
is
to arrest people like in the country, I would say Department of Justice.
not. Wouldn't
They're
it be
probably
the
working
military?
closely with the.
Like,
Well, it depends, right? Like if it weren't practical for the FBI to.
I don't think the FBI is
arrest.
going to be marching down, wherever what the fuck is Texas?
No, but
capital?
like I think that Abbott is in India right now. I don't even think he's in Texas.
India or Indiana?
India, the country.
Why the fuck is he in India? What are you doing there?
I think he is. I could be wrong. I just saw that like something that
Why
said
Governor
he's in
Greg Abbott is visiting India?
India.
Behaves.
Is he really?
Oh my god, he's just like the Palestinian guys. He does all the crazy shit when he's not even in the fucking country. Nice!
Yeah.
Based resistance. Okay, sorry.
I would want, like, if he were ordering Texas authorities to stop the federal government in a very clear assertion of authority, I would want him to be detained as he were coming into the country. I would want him to be arrested and processed as part of that conspiracy.
I think the scary thing for me is that I think that Donald Trump, I think and I hope and I'm right, okay? All the conservative dick suck of Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump could have ordered a military coup. People like Milley didn't like him. Too many people in the brass didn't like him. I think that I don't think the military would have been behind him. It's a lot scarier though when you're getting 10 or 11 governors now signing on to a potential insurrection / rebellion, because like I think it would be really bad, obviously, and you agree, right? It's bad when you have to start arresting governors. Nobody should ever want
Yes,
that. It's
I don't want that to
horrible.
happen.
It's atrocious, right?
Texas
But
should
the
stand
idea
up.
of like military or state, like military standing in opposition to like state forces now, that's like precipice of, or maybe even like further than civil war. Like that's beyond like Fort Sumter stuff at that point.
Well, we were there in the civil rights era. We were there.
25 governors? Is it 25?
Well, I don't know if
shit.
I don't know what they're saying. Hold the line. We support Texas. I don't know. That doesn't mean that they're going to support Texas no matter what. And also, if they do, it's not an excuse to back down. Like, imagine if we just back down. That would be.
No, I
horrible.
understand you can't back down. I'm just saying that before, like under Trump, I don't think there was ever a realistic path towards like a military insurrection. I don't think that would have happened. But with this many governors, I guess 25. Okay, Jesus, with 25 different governors supporting somebody, that I feel like the stakes are a lot different, and the people's conviction of that many large leaders is a lot different. Do you understand what I mean? That's my only worry. It doesn't get. I'm not saying it's more like being. I'm saying it makes it feel like we're closer to the precipice of violence than anything else.
Of the military, like overthrowing Joe Biden.
Well, no, just that there being like actual armed conflicts in the country.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
But this is Texas.
I just don't want to live in a fucking civil war.
I don't either, but like, but there can't be a back down. Like, we can't back down.
Sure.
If Joe Biden were to be like, oh no, let him have the area that we want. Like, no, you can't do that. Fuck that. You want to talk about what is detrimental to the presidency? The argument about absolute immunity, right? They're like, well, this will ruin the prestige of the presidency forever. If some state tried to get in their head, they could like stop Trump on border policy when we were in office. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. Like, imagine the president has a right to like take down a wall or put up a wall.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you at all on the legal part.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of spooky.
What do you want? What would you do if you're in office? You'd, like, talk to.
I mean, I
Abbott,
support
like,
Biden's
in good
current
faith?
thing is like hardcore. It's like hardcore push for bipartisan legislation. The problem is that like, did you watch all of Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when was it Sir Alistair?
Sir Alistair Thorne.
Was he the one that told Jon Snow he wasn't going to go to the other fort?
No.
Remember they were.
No. That's he used to be the king's.
Yeah, he used to be like the King's Guard, or he used to be
City
the Night's
Watch,
the
the
Night's
City
Watch,
Watch,
the City's Watch. Yeah,
the
that
City
one, yeah.
Watch, yeah.
Janos Slint, that guy.
Janos
yeah.
Slint, yeah.
You remember what he? You remember everything that played out that way, right?
Take your order up your bastard ass. Yeah, I remember that.
That probably had to go that way, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Exactly. Yeah. So like
It's
the problem, the
insubordination.
real question is that like, and I would really need to because I haven't gone through the Supreme Court statement and I haven't gone through the facts of the matter for what Texas has actually done. Okay, but if it is the case that we're not just like playing politics and Texas has already contravened federal authority and federal exclusive jurisdiction on immigration, if they have done that, and then Abbott has made statements after that, and then 24 other governors have supported him after defying the federal government, like the scary thing is like technically I don't think bipartisan legislation is enough. I think I don't want to lean too hard into that fucking Section 3 cuck shit. But like I think all of these governors have to step down and be
100%.
gone. Like they have to be gone completely. Yeah. You
If
can't
it
have
gets
like
that-
you can't have 50 independent states that are all like, well, actually, we don't believe in the federal government. We're kind of just going to do whatever the fuck we want now. That's insane. That's unhinged.
It's like if you were a teacher or a parent or something, and you have like a lot of kids to look after, and everyone's watching you.
Yeah.
As like some kid is throwing a tantrum and saying, "We should do this, we should," do that." And maybe even you were gonna do that. Maybe even you were gonna go the way of whatever the kid who was behaving unacceptably was suggesting. But now in that moment, your authority is being challenged and tested.
Yeah.
And you can't blink. Like, if you blink to the kid who's like throwing a tantrum, now you've lost them forever, and now you'll never be respected.
Yeah,
That-
it's
I
just
mean, that's where
annoying
we're at.
because like now the media memes that are going to play out on the conservative side is like, oh look, we knew that the president was going to be an authoritarian, and now Biden is blah 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 blah. Yeah.
I mean, they're media memes, and maybe that's part of the strategy here. But if it's part of the strategy, it's like, okay, so like suppose that they started arresting federal agents there, and the part of the strategy was to provoke Biden to.
Yeah,
do
but the
something
thing
in
is,
response.
I
You
think that
can't, like, do
assuming
otherwise.
Republicans, because remember, we're not talking Trump. If it was Trump, you might, because Trump is fucking retarded. But if you're a little bit more politically savvy, this is my guess, okay? My guess, and I could be wrong, okay? Because what do I know about these people? Maybe Abbott is a fucking retard, right? My guess is you're only gonna do things that are illegal. You're not gonna do things that look bad. So like, cutting down a wire fence or whatever looks good. It might be mega illegal, but it looks good, and people think it looks good. I would be surprised if the Texas police or state guards started arresting federal agents, because now you would look unhinged, and that would be, I think, politically very unsavvy. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll do crazy shit.
But I'm just saying, I'm not sort of.
And it looks unhinged
with
if,
you on
like,
the optics.
if the National Guard were to start arresting Texas state members, that would make them look really good to a lot of America. Even people in the middle, even some Democrats are like, oh shit, why the fuck is Biden sending the National Guard to arrest, like Texas Rangers or whatever? Like fucking, there goes Walker, being killed by the fucking FBI. Like, I think that would look bad to a lot of Americans, even if they were legally 100% within their right. And I think this is a hard argument to make, because so many people don't understand how really any of our system works at all. Any of our government works, right? Why the fuck wouldn't Texas be allowed to regulate their border? It's literally their border. You're telling me that the Texas Guard can't go down and prevent illegal immigrants that rape and murder and bring drugs? They can't prevent them from coming to the country because Biden's too lazy to do it? Like, that narrative it writes itself. These are the easiest attack ads in the world to write. And now Biden is sending the National Guard to go arrest Texas Rangers who are just trying to protect their citizens from MS-13 drug dealers that are contributing to the fentanyl crisis that we know is like, it's just like such an easy line of attack. And to fight against any of this, even if you're 100% legally correct, you look horrible doing it.
I don't dispute, like, there's a political issue here, which is why I think that it's savvy for Biden and his administration to be pivoting on the, or I should say, working on the bipartisan stuff, where it is a bit tough, and where he's like at least saying that I'm gonna close down the border as soon as
that was
on
a
day
strong
one.
statement. Yeah, give me the authority to do it, and I'll close it on day one. That is true. Yeah, because I think under Title 40, was it Title 42? Didn't Trump have the ability to basically do that?
Sure, yeah.
That he was
for
like
the health crisis.
Yeah, that
the
Trump
president
was
has a
able
lot of power. He could suspend the. Remember, he has the suspension power.
Wait a second. Wait. Can Biden theoretically do that today?
I don't know about whether or not the suspension power allows for the closing of the border, though. I'm not sure.
I thought when it came to I thought the president could basically say, the closest thing he has to criminal immunity is basically the president saying, listen, I think there's a national defense emergency.
I haven't done a lot of
so
analysis of it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
that's
we
one of the
can
widest
revisit
areas
this
I think that the Supreme Court gives the president is deferences of national security. But yeah,
1,000%. And but the point you made earlier about how can it be the case that I guess legally we both agree, so there's no point hashing it out. Because you 100% agree with me that, or I think, or maybe I agree with you, we agree with each other, that the federal government needs to have absolute supremacy on things of border and immigration.
Yeah, nothing else works. Or rather, at the last say, right? That doesn't mean that states can't help and that the federal government can't coordinate with states.
But
they
it needs to be
absolutely
consensual.
could. Yeah, but it has to be, consensual with the leading coming from the federal government. That's the only way. Unless, if you want to concede that Texas should be able to regulate border policy, then fine. If you're a conservative, you can do that. That's fine. But in the next breath, you have to say California needs to be able to let as many illegal immigrants in as they want, and to be able to fight at the border, to fight and shoot and kill federal immigration and customs enforcement officers if they want to, right? So from now on, California says we literally have open borders. Every illegal that wants to can come in, and we're gonna let them go wherever the fuck we want in the U.S. And that's your guys' shit. But that would be wild. That'd be so stupid. That would be wild.
Yeah. And there are a couple legal arguments that I want to address head on, so no one thinks that I'm dodging them. Number one is the notion that just because the federal government has immigration authority doesn't mean that the states don't, and that the states couldn't come in if the federal government doesn't do enough. Even Antonin Scalia, who is in dissent in the case Arizona versus United States, said the following quote, which I posted on my Twitter. Quote, he believes that states have residual immigration power, that they could banish people, right? He says, I accept as a given that state regulation.
Wait, hold on. Can I ask a quick clarifying question? Can banish other Americans or just immigrants?
Non-citizen, that they retain
gotcha.
sovereignty, and that includes. I think that might include citizens actually.
Because I thought, isn't there article? I don't know the Constitution. Which they're part of. One of them is that you have to give full faith and credit to the judicial proceedings and everything else of every other state.
Yeah, but as a matter of Texas law, I think that Scalia would say that states always had the power to exclude people they didn't want. Maybe that's limited to citizens because of
That's
other parts of
wild.
the
I feel like that's in
Constitution.
direct opposition to the whatever article bullshit I'm thinking of the Constitution, but maybe no, that
But
must
look
be.
at what Scalia. Look at what Scalia says, right? He
Uh-huh.
says this is in dissent in Arizona
Sure.
versus United States, where Arizona passed a bunch of laws trying to like make illegal immigration illegal as a matter of Arizona law. Okay, so they were trying to address illegal immigration more than the federal government was. Okay, and this is what Scalia says in dissent, right? And Scalia is a believer that states have some authority to regulate their own borders, right? So this is someone who I disagree with on that, but who believes in it, right? Quote, I accept as given that state regulation regarding immigration is excluded by the Constitution where, 1, it has been prohibited by a valid federal law, or 2, it conflicts with federal regulation. When, for example, it admits those whom federal regulation would exclude or excludes those whom federal regulation would admit. So here he's saying, even Scalia, someone who believed in residual immigration power for states, says that you cannot contradict
Yeah, because
the
it sounds
federal
like
government
I just read like a
stuff. Yeah.
super quick whatever always.org is. It sounds like Scalia's argument wasn't that they could write their own law. Just looking at the summary, it sounds like Scalia is saying that like it doesn't conflict with federal law.
Right. And to the extent that it conflicts, Scalia is saying, hey, the state loses. In
I
those
know my way
situations.
around.
That if, again, the example is just the easiest one in the world. If the United States Congress decided, hey, we're gonna let our border open, where anyone can come in no matter what, and we'll adjudicate your immigration claims whenever we feel like it, but the border is open. If they did that, there would be no legal recourse for the state of Texas. And if you don't agree with that, then like you don't agree with the law. The state of Texas doesn't have a right to contradict the federal government on issues of immigration and the border. They just don't. The worst thing that I heard was, and he sounded like a nice guy actually. Remember the first guy we talked to yesterday had the bad mic?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe was it yesterday or maybe the day before? Time has lost its meaning. He said, I believe it's illegal, but I'm in support of it.
Yeah, that was
At
wild.
that point, like, where are we? What is your argument against illegal immigration then? I mean, if your argument is, well, they have to come in legally, it sounds like you're paying deference to the law. What's your argument against illegal immigration if you're saying, well, states can do illegal things and I'm in favor of it?
That's why I'm saying you would have to take into your next breath would have to be supporting you'd have to support California letting in unlimited illegal immigrants.
You'd have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're being inconsistent. But they don't care. That's what I think. They don't care. I mean, they're citing some bullshit provisions of the Constitution, like these provisions about invasion that are clearly not applicable.
Yeah.
And I can explain why if anyone wants to challenge, or if anyone wants to assert them. Really, like those YouTube chatters, they talk a big game, right? They talk a big game. The people who disagree on Twitter, they talk a big game. But like, have a discussion, right? Discuss like give your legal arguments about why on voice. Why not? If you're so confident.
Yeah, fuck, hold on. There is a guy that wants to argue, and he's from yesterday.
All right.
The Bayo guy. I can't be here for too much longer, though. I have to take off pretty soon. So
All
I'll
right,
give you
yeah.
guys a few minutes
Do
to follow.
whatever you want.
I'm going to read. Also, wait, real quick. Is there a difference between because I'm looking at the opinion in Arizona v. United States.
United States. Yeah.
Is there a difference between a concurrent opinion versus a dissenting opinion?
Concurrence agrees with like the result.
Okay.
And dissent doesn't agree with the result. There was one part of the Arizona statutes that everyone like thought was okay. It was like unanimously okay.
Okay, so I'm
concurred
just checking
on
because
that
I'm
part.
looking at the opinion of this Arizona v. United States, and it says Scalia is a concurrent. Does that mean he affirmed it? Or-
So everyone, all 9 agreed that part of the Arizona's legal law was okay. There was like one part I think which said that Arizona police people and law enforcement can contact
Gotcha. Okay.
federal.
So it looks
people,
like then
and
even on
they're
this,
like, "That's okay,"
then
yeah.
Scalia was not a dissenter on this case. Then, if he's writing a concurrent opinion, that
No, he's a dissent on the part that I read.
sure,
where
that's
he's
fine.
like-
Okay, gotcha. Good, but I saw some people just saying, "Oh, well, Scalia dissented for his opinion," but it sounds like he
He
agreed,
concurred
but he
only
just-
in the result for one aspect, but he would have gone further and said it's all legal, it's all allowed.
Sure,
But
okay.
but the actual majority were like, no, it's not.
Okay,
all
I'm gonna read this while you guys fight. Good luck.
allowed. Okay. Arizona.
I don't know, Bayo. I think he was the one that made that comment yesterday. That
Yeah. Read Arizona versus United States. It's a Kennedy opinion.
Or
And the
I'm
first part of
reading.
the-
I'm just reading Scalia's concurrence. I'm just curious. That's all I'm reading. But you
Okay.
guys are gonna fight.
Yeah,
Go
sure.
for it. Don't worry. Go ahead. I'm reading it to
Hey,
myself.
where is he?
What's up?
Oh, hey man, what are you doing?
Sitting here with a better mic. How are you?
I'm doing good, dude. Yeah, it's glad to hear. I'm glad to hear you have a better mic because you sounded awful.
Well, now that Texas is finally enforcing the border, he was able to get a good job that wasn't being competed with by
Yeah,
living
I took it from a Fed.
Okay.
I took it from the cold corpse of a Fed that tried to enforce the border laws.
Yeah, man. So no, I wanted to clear up what I meant yesterday.
Sure.
For one thing,
Was it
when I
yesterday, by the way?
Day before yesterday. Yeah, no. So, what I meant by the I agree with Abbott's actions, right? It was the actual laying of the fence, and that's one of the most frustrating things. Yeah. So one of the most frustrating things about this entire situation to me is the misframing that a lot of pundits, the media, are doing with it. Because the legal case that's being fought right now isn't necessarily about border policy. I mean, it ostensibly touches border policy, but it's about private property. It has nothing to do with like the actual policy of the border, because Operation Lone Star is still going. Nothing has changed with Operation Lone Star. Are you familiar with it at all?
Is that some Texas enforcement policy?
Yeah, so Texas in 2021 sent a ton of people down to the border, and it was Guard, public safety, Rangers, all those dudes, right? All of that's continuing to go on. They're still laying fence in other locations with the federal government. They're still putting up walls in different places with the federal government. This is only a unique case in Del Rio. And just for some context, from 2017 to 2019, I worked on Operation Guardian Shield in the Tucson sector and the El Paso sector, so I've got a little bit of experience dealing with these dudes. Sure. And the Border Patrol, the way they operate is each sector is kind of like a little fiefdom. And when they make a decision about something, it usually blows up. Well, this has blown up in a way that allowed the media to grab it, and now the courts have grabbed it, and it's become a political issue. But at the end of the day, what the argument is can the federal government cut the wire so that the feds can continue to do their job?
You're welcome.
And the guardsmen are still standing right behind the border, apprehending people and giving them to the Border Patrol all across the state. That's even going on there. And then, have you read the it was the deposition statements right before in the appeal to the Fifth Circuit?
No, I haven't read the Fifth Circuit briefing at all.
Okay, so in that, I think the Supreme Court is probably looking at the Section 702 ruling that the Western District made, but in the depositions, what is stated to have happened is that guardsmen did not allow the Border Patrol to come on to the Shelby Park area. But even in that appeal in the depositions, the federal government says, we are aware this morning the Guard was allowing Border Patrol trucks through and to do operations in this area. They're still allowing us to launch our boat from the boat ramp. But they don't want us to tear up the fence, so they got the temporary restraining order. We tried to get an injunction, only got a TRO, and that is what we have a problem with. So they've already acknowledged that. They're still letting people drive through. They're still using the military and the Texas Military Department to do the border activities. It's really frustrating that this is just being turned into a political thing rather than a facts matter.
I don't claim to have the proper border fencing policy from an immigration perspective. Okay, number one, and I'm glad that that when the federal government allows for it, that the state of Texas is complying and helping out with apprehensions or whatever it is that they need to help out with, and that usually they're able to work out their differences, which is I think what you're suggesting, and that really this is just more of a minor thing about one part of fencing, whatever, right? But I am not the one. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 there.
Okay.
It's completely worked out.
It sounds like we were saying this is being blown up when it doesn't need to be. It could just be a political dispute over some area. I'm not blowing this up. The Republicans and the state officials in 25 states are blowing up to it, and they're making it out to be a huge conflict in policy. And so that's either true or it's not true. But the words that are being used by the state governors of Texas, of Oklahoma, et cetera, Republicans, federal Republicans, are fighting words, and they are saying Texas has a right to disobey the federal policy. And so you could say it's a minor issue. I don't care if it's minor or major. I don't care about the razor wire. I don't care if we have a razor wire somewhere else. If razor wire is acceptable, not acceptable, smart, not smart. It's not about that. It's about the jurisdiction and the supremacy of federal authority over the border. And at least from the perspective of the talkers currently, the Republicans, the state Republicans and congressional Republicans, are acting as though this is a huge conflict in policy. And they're acting as though it's super important that Texas hold the line. And so any kind of blow up in the media is their fault. And I know who wins if there's a conflict between the feds and the states on border policy. And it's not the states, and it's not Texas. And so this insubordination, this defiance, is Texas's fault. And regardless of your thoughts on the underlying policy, I think it's really important that everyone who believes in our Constitution condemn, in the strongest possible words, what the governor is doing.
No, absolutely. So the posturing and all the bluster from both the Republican side, and it's almost nowhere on the border policy issue is it a Republicans are the only ones doing something, liberals are the only ones doing something, leftists, whatever. There's plenty of people on the other side that are spurring it along, saying, hey, another insurrection, hey, we should go arrest these dudes. But yes, totally agree that the whole fighting words and the whole the line shit is stupid in this entire conversation. But do you think this is another instance of the SCOTUS getting involved in something and politicizing an issue that doesn't necessarily need to be politicized?
No, I don't actually, because I think both who went to court, right? Who went to court to try to get some help? I think Texas went to court initially. Texas went to court.
Texas was the one that went to court, and I mean,
so
this
can't
case
blame.
was being.
Go ahead.
This case was already being heard on February 7th, so in a couple of weeks, and for an issue that amounts to about 35 feet of border with fence getting cut, and the Fifth Circuit's pretty damning of the federal government.
The circuit's unhinged, but that's a separate.
Yeah, no, yes, I agree. They've made some other decisions that I'm not a fan of, but they did go in on it pretty hard, and they agreed with the Western District on some of their findings. The only thing that
they were reversed by the Supreme Court of the United States. And so if you're saying like, are the courts politicizing this? No, only
we don't know what they lost on.
It doesn't matter.
Well, it does, because there's 4 different claims in that suit that basically they got the TRO because the Western District didn't think that they would succeed on the merits on the Section 702 piece of it. But the other pieces of it, the trespass to chattel and ultra-various allegations, they said that they were likely to succeed on that. Fifth Circuit agreed. I think it would be important if the Supreme Court's going to throw a match into an already burning fire. They should. I mean,
the Supreme Court's not going to hear something that is not before them, and so I don't know. There's a bit of an echo. Just real quick, heads up. They're not gonna make some kind of advisory opinion that for something that's not at issue. If the Fifth Circuit didn't grant injunctive relief of any kind on the other claims, that's on them, and the Supreme Court shouldn't get involved if there's nothing to review and if no one is asking for review. Good.
Yeah, the Fifth Circuit did grant the injunction, and then but the Supreme Court didn't issue any opinion.
It was a summary opinion. It was a shadow docket thing, but that doesn't matter, right? Like they reversed the injunction because I don't know if you have any legal background, but one of the most important factors for this kind of reversal or even the imposition of an injunction is likelihood to succeed on the merits. And so to reverse the Fifth Circuit in a summary fashion like that signals that the Biden administration is going to win on these challenges, most likely. That's why all these Republicans are up in arms and angry at Amy Coney Barrett. They're angry because they know what this signals.
Well, I think it's also important to to look at what it actually reversed. I think it's being framed in such a way that a lot of people are thinking this reverses the entire case, that this kind of shuts down the case, all that stuff. When all this does is it takes away the TRO and then the injunction the Fifth Circuit said they could have. It takes that away, and they're still allowed to hear the arguments. I think it would be better, and these are just opinions. I'm agreeing with the Supreme Court. They shut it down. It's shut down. Cool, whatever. But I think if they had issued some kind of guidance as to why or what they thought the claim that would fail would be, something like that, it would be an example of them staying apolitical rather than adding to a political fire.